like, okay, so they tell us we're on a sphere and we're all stuck to it, and then the gravity is. I knew what they were teaching, but then but it just did not resonate with me. Did not make sense as to what reality was, and I questioned it very deeply within myself. But it was only kind of more within my own mind. I never really spoke out about it and said, hey, what's up with this? It was just within my own mind. And when I look back on that now, it's like like a child's intuition can be incredibly accurate in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying always in every way, but there's a lot of ways in which, it's like there's that thing like, children know things, in so many different ways. And so, yeah, and so I think that initial like questioning and skepticism that I had, as it were, was, to me, it was sort of like the seed of truth that my mind was going back to, but I didn't really have enough kind of ability to like speak out about it or say anything about it, at that point. And then even when I looked into flat Earth, like for the first time, more in like 2004, 2005, and found the term flat Earth linked with a stationary planar Earth kind of idea and all of that. And then it was like that reconnected with that initial point. And then I already had that kind of resonance, and then anyways, and then the journey continued from there. But yeah, so I had a similar, in that, like maybe not the exact same as you, but like a similar way that, the physics that they were describing, and also the motion. I remember thinking like, they tell us we're, going in all these different motions around. I mean, it is such a dramatic claim that you have to take a huge leap, like, oh, they tell us it's happening kind of thing.
Yeah, I never really did have that sort of, come up in my mind. I just kind of just let it go. It really didn't interest me much, other than, that we lived on Earth. And to me, that was just, that was about it. But then when I found out about flat Earth, it took like 24 hours for me. I watched all of Mark Sargent's stuff, all of Eric DeBay's stuff, everything that was available at the time. I went on like a 24-hour watch binge. And it just made so much sense to me. It's just like, all of a sudden, it's just like, we don't live on a fucking globe. And ever since that day, that one 24-hour marathon watch, I have never, ever changed my mind since that day. It was just so obvious to me that we do not live on a ball.
Well, thank you very much, God Rockin', and a big hello to you, God Rockin', and I love your story. Mine was very similar to you at school. In England, at my elementary school, we never learnt about the flat Earth at all. It never came up. Just the globe. And the English, and the teacher showed me where we lived. Great Britain, she showed. That's where we are on the globe. Okay. But where the globe was situated, there are a couple of maps. One was like the Mercator map. Then there was a one of the geology, of like the way the soil and all that stuff. And then there was one about like the jungle, one with the Africa being the jungle, and then the developed countries with buildings and stuff like that. So I spent a lot of time in that corner every day for about, maybe, I would say, anything from 4 to 6 months. And it was when I was playing with the globe that I formulated that question. Well, what about the Australians? Why don't they fall off? And that's when I learned about gravity from my teacher. So I took the globe as gospel because that's where we lived, but I questioned gravity because I didn't feel the force pulling me down to the ground, you see. Okay. So when the teacher said that's what's keeping you on the ground, and I jumped up, came back down, she said that's gravity pulling you down. So I said, okay, miss, I scratched my head and I teased the other kids because the other kids didn't know about gravity at this time. Okay. Yeah, that's how it happened for me. And I did ask my teacher, why is it that Africa doesn't have any buildings, modern buildings on it? It was all like jungle and straw huts and animals, okay? And she said, well, the animals have to have somewhere to live. And I went, oh, yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then I carried on walking off. Understand? So I did have a weird experience with this globe introduction, but there you are. This is 1968 or 69, just before I went to Nigeria.
Well, yeah, you're not going to see buildings in those places because buildings and such were invented elsewhere. It's not because they wanted to depict huts. It's just the fact that it was not available there at the time. Now, if you went to
1970s, hang on, 1970s Africa had lots of cities on it. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and it had cities, and you could see those. Those were actually shown to us. And also Egypt. If you look at Egypt in the ancient times, Egypt had buildings, right? So no one was holding any information away from you. No one, and no one was holding flat Earth away from you.
You're
Flat Earth
completely
was
missing the.
flat Earth was
you're
disproven 2,000 years before. There's no way, there's no reason to teach it to you now.
you're completely missing the point. In the
You're
1960s,
misrepresenting my position and
yeah,
point and education, actually, because that's not what we were talking about.
yeah. Jim was saying that, and it's true for a lot of people. If you looked at maps or pit atlases and stuff in the 70s, it would show New York having skyscrapers, and it would show London having Big Ben, and it would just show Africa as one big area of jungle with lions and tigers. Even though there was quite well developed modern cities in Africa. That's the point he was making.
Yeah, no, and I'm saying that's not true. When I did natural history as a youth, we knew the capitals of all the countries in Africa, and we had maps that showed city and municipalities, like in Nigeria, Ghana, Egypt, all these places. South Africa was very popular, right? And you'd see nice buildings. So
And
you are misrepresenting the truth here. We need to be
no,
honest.
no. Talking about the kind of maps that are shown to 7-year-olds and 6-year-olds, the books. We're not talking about what you did it when you studied further on, yeah. And they horribly characterized everyone in the world. It's true.
No,
Oh, I give
again,
up. I give up.
yeah, well, because you're not speaking the truth. When I was in kindergarten and these things in the first grade, when they showed us pictures of different countries, they showed us pictures of countries in Egypt that had buildings, structures. All right, so these are the facts.
What does that have to do with the subject matter here? The fact between
Again,
planet and globe. Just because there's buildings, that doesn't prove that it's
Yeah.
that doesn't prove anything. It's just they're just cities. So what? They're all over the earth. Cities here, cities there.
Did you read about Dick and Jane?
Holy fuck, dude!
Hey, SC, are you at your mic by any chance?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to link back. I'm just trying to. There's so many different directions people usually want to take the combo, it's understandable. There's a lot of different points that get brought up, but we were on something from before, and it kind of that was led into the idea of like how they taught us the globe or what the Earth was, flat Earth, and all that as we were growing up. But before we kind of even went off on that branch, we were talking a little bit about the schooling system. And we could do a different topic too, however. But I just wanted to link back to this real quick because I was going to ask you this question. I just wonder what your thoughts are on it, and then we could go from there, and we could either continue on that or we could shift to something else. But I guess I was just gonna like ask you like, what do you think would be like? Do you think like because we were talking about that schooling system, with the bells and the teachers and all that. Like, what parts of that like do you think would be good to maintain and to keep? And then which parts to change or to transform? Because obviously, if there's false information the kids are being taught, that's a whole thing. But do you even like agree with that whole model of like teaching kids in like bulk like that, or like just what are your thoughts on like how that how that would be like shifted or improved, or because we were that was kind of brought up earlier.
Good question. Good question. Yeah, knowing what this system is and how it was designed, for me, it's easy. This was the Prussian education system. I'll be real quick. They designed this education system to teach people because they were fighting for the king. And when they would charge the front lines and go to war, they would run back. They didn't have anything to fight for. They hated the king. They were mistreated, and they just didn't want to fight for the king. So they devised the Prussian education system, salute the flag and all that, be proud, and the national anthem. That all came from that. So it's literally a system designed to make you obey the king. So personally, knowing that, I would abolish the whole thing and go back to apprenticeship. That's how it was done in the past. You studied under an apprentice. So that's basically.
100% agree with that, brother.
What about
100%?
That's a good point.
what about reading, writing, arithmetic, and all that stuff?
I
Yeah, I
think that
think
was
that
taught at home. Yeah.
they just pick
About
that up.
vocational
Yeah,
school?
kids are so on point. Like, just the kids will pick up pretty much everything on their own. Honestly, like you don't really have to like do too much. Like kids just hanging out, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's true. The youngest flat earther that I met was a fifth grader named Leonard. I think he was first generation Chinese Canadian. And when I asked him how he drew his conclusion on how the Earth was definitely not a sphere, because that's what he said, he replied with one word: science. And when I asked him, I was blown away that he replied with science. I asked him if he told his dad. He said no.
Yeah, and don't forget another important part of that is, last thing on that subject, it was designed as well to take the children away from the house, right? So public education is another way of indoctrination. So make both parents work, get the children out of the house, and then, well, do I have to say anything? The woke movement and stuff like that is easy to infiltrate. The kids are away from the house. That's the biggest crime I think they committed, convincing the parents to let their kids go away for the whole day and have somebody else teach them.
I know, dude.
Yeah.
I know, man. Like I went to public school growing up, and I mean, they were good. They were good schools, and they were safe and all that. But it was strange when I really look back on it that such a large majority I was with, you know. I mean, I guess it's fun in a way to hang out with other kids. I mean, kids always do like playing with other kids, so that part's fun, of course. Like that was probably, I would imagine a lot of us would agree that some of our favorite times of growing up was actually the friendships and the other actual kids that we were able to hang out with. So that part is cool. And even if you live in a neighborhood, it is cool when all the kids can get together, 10, 20 kids to, play and all that. So that those parts obviously are fun, but yeah, just thinking of all of these, probably like somewhat semi creepy teachers, like even though I went to a good school district and all that, like it wasn't unsafe or anything, but at the end of the day, like they definitely had some weird vibes. Like I remember some of those teachers were very like kind of very like aggressive, and it was, yeah, it's just weird, to just send your kid off. Anyways, that's just part of what you were saying, but yeah, having the child basically being raised by, 50% of the child's life is raised by the school system instead of in the home.
Yeah, and the most important.
Yeah, there were.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Izzy. I was just saying that. Yeah, there were some. I had some terrible teachers. I had some. I got my ass whipped at least once a week, all through grade and middle school. But I'm just thinking, what would happen if we stopped structured education to the children? It would be like the beginning of the new medieval times, I think.
Well, dude, like, do you know what like the Waldorf school system is?
No.
Okay, well, do you know who Rudolf Steiner is? You know Rudolf Steiner?
I've heard the name, but I
Oh,
haven't.
I love Rudolf Steiner.
Yeah, so there's many things that in Rudolf Steiner's entire lineage that he left behind, but one of those is the Waldorf school system, which is based on Rudolf Steiner's work and his understandings of things. And I mean, it's a fully accredited school system. Now, you can look up. There's not like a ton of them in every state, kind of thing, but I mean, there's a lot of them in California, and then there's others around the country. But the Waldorf school system is like pretty amazing, and it's just completely different the way that the way the schooling system is, in a lot of different ways. Meaning it's not the same like militaristic, regimented, read this thing, take this test and get this answer. And they actually they allow the kids to like explore their own interests and their own creativities. They help the kids to learn in their own ways. Like if some kids are visual learners, they'll focus more on visual. If some kids are more auditory, they'll focus on auditory. And they do have some things that are, of course, like reading and writing and some of these things that are all basics they have integrated in, but it's a much more like accepting way to educate children. And I can't really even wrap it up in any way, like in 20 seconds or anything. So I won't even try, because there's a lot to it, but I was just trying to give like a very basics of it. And anyway, so I'm just saying, like, it might, maybe left lane, like you might consider it like maybe less structured in a way, but the children that come out of it, many of them I knew as adults, the ones who went through the whole Waldorf school system, and they are some of the most on point, intelligent. They're incredible. And actually, when I've brought up flat Earth to them, they're way more open-minded to it, by the way. They don't have the globe resistance, the ones I brought up to, that actually went to Waldorf schools growing up. I mean, they were taught the globe, so I'm not saying they're like flat earthers or anything, but when I bring up flat Earth, they are, there's like almost zero resistance. So that's another interesting thing.
No, I have looked into this. I remember now, and I agree that this prescriptive, teacher before the classroom spitting out information, and it's all 100% up to the individual student to pay attention and do your homework and pass the test, right? But that structure may not work for all students. For me personally, I was so disengaged and disinterested in what that teacher was saying. As an adult, I did excellent in college, but through my high school years, I had great difficulty in doing well, making good grades, because I was disconnected. They did not have any of my attention. But I believe if someone actually made an effort to see what they needed to do to connect and to gain my interest, I would have done a lot better.
Oh, for sure. One way to access the mind is through the heart, and that's through attachment theory. And unfortunately, they train teachers on how to teach children to remember, recite, etc. But I don't think they actually train them on how to access the heart of the child.
I think the ideal way to teach kids, this is just my own opinion, would be obviously teach them how to read. Everybody needs to know how to read. And you do need basic mathematics and stuff like that. And then you would want to try and find something they were interested in, a trade, and teach them a trade. And if they didn't like that, move on to another trade, or, computer science or whatever. Start them in a very young age, like first, second grade. They want to learn how to use computers, get a computer, teach them how to use it, teach them all about computers and how to make them function, and then maybe computer science from then on, how to build them and make them better, and give the kid something that they really have a desire to learn. One kid wants to learn how to build a house, and so you take them out, you teach them this is how you build a house. You can teach them how to do the footing, foundation, do the framing, electrical, plumbing, all that shit, just one after another. And there's so much.
Kids should be learning that anyway. They should be learning just basic carpentry and basic
they have that
basic plumbing.
Well, I actually took
anyway.
Building trades.
Wood shop, right? Yeah, we did wood shop and metal shop and what else? Freaking home ec. Well, you did home ec, right?
Yeah, I know those things exist, but I'm thinking, I'm just saying that if you started them off at a much younger age, like grade school age, get them interested in one trade or another, or two or three or whatever, just so that, you can teach them how to be useful in some way. And, because when you become useful, it gives you a certain amount of pride, and you have more self-worth. You're somebody that can actually do something and create something. And I think that's a much better way to teach someone. Yeah,
exactly. So like one of the things they do in the Waldorf school system, like in a very generalized way, God rocking your mic. Yeah. In a generalized way is just like I'm not giving like some exact way. I'm just using some generalized wordings in terms of it. Where, for example, if you have a group of 15 children, whatever age, 8 years old or whatever it may be, one way you could teach them is just to have a regiment, a one particular script, a book, a test, etc. You get the test right. You get the test, right or wrong, and you pass or fail, and you better do good, and that's it. And it's like a one size fits all the way that they do it in our system now. And if you have some differences, well, you could maybe try some. You can at some point you can pick your electives or whatever. So I guess they do give like variety there, but the main teachings are still like all kind of homogenized in that way, in that similar way. Whereas within the Waldorf school system type thing, there are some foundations that are like reading and writing and some of the basic things that are obviously taught to all of the children. But at the same time, they actually like pay attention to the individual child to see what, what their personality is, what their interests are, etc. So if one of the boys is, doing artwork more, or he always gravitates, and they even have things where they allow the child to kind of gravitate to different things. They'll have artwork in one corner, they'll have, something more kind of mathematical in another, like they'll have different, and then they'll allow the children to kind of like find what they actually like to do. And then by doing that, like the child actually is like learning, yes, the foundational things, but they're also actually able to like pursue, what their actual interests are and what their focus are. So kind of like it links into what you're saying, God Rockin', that like, because then if you were to do that, young, then you could already like, help them even in those more transitional years, instead of just grinding through middle school, high school with these like very slightly different, curriculums. At that point, like the child could already be very advanced, like, in their own actual, potential, instead of being confused and trying to figure out which way to go, and the way the system is now after they've already fit you into one thing.
Is the Steiner school, is the Waldorf school similar to the Steiner one in its sort of output or its teaching modality?
No, the Waldorf schools are like inspired. It's the same. I mean, Steiner education, Waldorf education. Those are one and the same.
Yeah, like I kind of wanted to respond a little bit to what Left Lane sort of put forth, that he was disinterested by the education system and that was problematic. And the response to that, like as far as I can tell through the Steiner schools, is, what was that? I worked at a cafe once and we had this event, and this Steiner school, basically their final year class showed up and they had to do their presentations. And I got a kind of sense of what and how it worked. They don't actually go into sort of doing specifically math and then specifically physics and then like geology. What these guys do in a lot of cases is they pick a subject that has broad sort of application to many different things. So I was just thinking like maybe a good example would be if a child, they do this for 2 years, I think, as well. They develop a thesis, essentially, and say that they just want to pick something like a butterfly. They can go study the biology of a butterfly. Then they can use the math equations, the flutter of the wings, and then they can start applying math to their thesis. So, and this keeps on going. Like you can look into the artwork of the patterns on the butterfly and how that works for the butterfly. And this like just keeps going and going. You can pick sort of broad subjects that allow you, like, if you've got an interest in butterflies, you'll find some aspect of the education system in the way that it lives. And this allows actually for the kid to like feel like they're governing and self-guiding their own education. It keeps them interested because it's the subject matter, but then they delve into all the mathematics and all the biology connected with it, rather than this prescriptive sort of, get this textbook, do the math equations, do your test and see how well you recite the math equations. You can do that all with like just the butterfly. If you want to do an analysis of how it sort of flies and all that. Did you get where I'm coming from, Left Lane?
Yeah, I'm picking it up. I think a lot of it is looking at the individual. I don't know, even in the public schools, there should be something to recognize this individual is having trouble and have some way, maybe using Waldorf or the Stein thing to give that individual some attention to try to figure out a way to wake them up and try to structure some kind of program or something to, like I said, to get the kids' interest and see what they could do to be productive. I don't feel like I can tell you my whole life story. I wasn't a washout, but I was, as an adult, very disappointed in my performance in school, but I recognized that it wasn't necessarily my fault that I was non-productive. It was the structure of the classroom and the way they went about teaching was totally disinteresting to me, and I was disconnected, 80% of the time. And instead of like recognizing he needs some attention, I need to talk to him and see what's up. I never got any of that. It was just, you don't get it, you just fail, and that was your only option,
Yeah, but that culture, the
yeah,
consequence of a prescriptive system, because I mean, you're waiting for the failure before you're willing to institute the solution. I'm suggesting that there is a common solution that can be applied to everyone, and they'll all benefit from that technique. We don't need to sort of
it
wait for a problem
definitely,
child to emerge and then put them in a special class and then like separate them from the rest of the crew, which then comes along with like a lot of social shaming associated with that.
yeah,
You've
I
actually
agree.
got,
Well, they
you
just
got to
jack
think,
them up on Ritalin and Adderall.
yeah.
No, Left Lane, I hear you, dude. I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm resonating. I'm trying to also understand from your perspective, like what what your experience was. I definitely had my own experience. Like if we're going deep into like into these, I don't know. Yeah, it's just like how deep to go in a way, but like yeah, dude, I definitely felt very disinterested. But I was always able to. Like, were you in a position where, because you said you were failing, like, was that the position you were in? Is that you were so disinterested that you were actually failing the tests and stuff, or
Oh,
is
well, I
that what
mean,
you?
yeah, I failed my share of them. I mean, I barely graduated high school, but the thing is, I went back to college at 35 as a freshman and graduated with honors. So, I mean, I had the ability, was definitely there, but they just weren't able to tap it in the way they went about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a completely like lifeless system of just cogs in a machine. The way they do it.
Yeah, yep.
I always got like pretty much good enough grades throughout it all, but like kind of A's and B's kind of thing. I don't really know how though, because I somehow I must have just been able to pick up stuff like hearing it the first time, maybe when the teacher was saying it, and I just heard it as like in like my subconscious, and I just remembered it because I don't remember ever really like I never did like homework. I never went home and sat and read for hours. I just picked it all up when I was there and just got through on all their tests, more or less. And once I got to college, I could write papers. So that's well, but I had to take a lot of like multiple choice things because even in college, like in undergrad, I had to take like chemistry, and so yeah, there was a lot of complicated tests. I don't know how I got through it all, but because yeah, it feels like I never really put all the time in to like do what they really told you to do, but I somehow was able to figure it all out.
Yeah, it was like I ran a business for 18 years, auto, farm, and industrial supply, successful business before I went back to college. And I went in to take the evaluation, where do you need to start in your math? And I handed the paper back and I said, I need to start at the bottom. So my high school gave me general math, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. That was it. I had zero algebra. The science was very limited, and I wound up, that's what I focused in college was science. But, I went from, I guess you'd call it remedial math for the first 2 semesters. And I think I took a number 2 calculus, in my biology studies, and got it, and did well in it. But they did nothing to prepare me. And, I was a failure of the system, I guess you would say.
Well, you're saying your high school didn't even have those things? Because I mean, our high school had all kinds of calculus 1, 2, all that. You didn't.
It was all electives. It was all, and I'm like, fuck that, I'm just going to take the bare minimum.
I gotcha. See, the way ours was, I think, was God. This is like tapping memories, but I think the way ours
So yeah,
was
real quick,
all right.
Left Lane went to school before Newton invented calculus, so that was why they didn't have it.
Yeah.
Well, right. Well, you're talking the 70s.
Yeah, I graduated in 80.
Because I grew up. Well, okay, so yeah, high school. I graduated 2000, so of high school, anyways. So yeah, I'm like 20 years later than you. Yeah, so my high school would be like 96 to 2000, and then yours would be what, 76 to 80.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so that's different. And then maybe the area you grew up in as well. Because the way ours was, I think, I mean, not that we have to go into all this detail on this, but I think with the math thing, like you were either on the regular path or you were on the advanced path. It was just regular or advanced. So yeah, the advanced would have been like the higher levels of the calculus. But even in the regular one, you still got some of all that, at least like the basics of it, seems.
Hey,
So
I've just been
Yeah, that
listening in the background. I was just going to say real quick, Gio, like the way you said you didn't study, you just like got it while you were there and made it through. I did the exact same thing, and I also was in high school from '96 to 2000.
oh, right on, dude.
Yeah,
Nice. We were
same for
surfing
me.
together.
I used to get kicked out of the class because I was doing my homework from the previous lesson in the next class, and at 1 year at a half point short to pass over to the next class, and my biology teacher who always kicked me out because I was always doing other things what I was thinking, but he was always telling stories about his nature trips, and all the class was keeping him talking. And then meanwhile, I was working in the book because I liked biology, and the class didn't want to get taught. So at that point, he's asked me, he said, Chris, what are you always doing in my class? How is it possible you always get nines? And even even I have to give you a 10, but because you're always messing up my class, he said, I always extract a point for you. So he gave me that half point back so I could pass that year. And then he said, oh, so that's a lesson I'm going to take. So the next students next year, they never got those stories again at all. They got classes.
What part of the country did you go to high school, Gio?
I grew up in Michigan.
sounds about right.
Yep, I grew
Makes
up in
sense.
Michigan. Yeah, I grew up in Michigan, lived there. I went to Michigan State University for my undergrad, MSU, for my 4 years of undergrad. And then around 2005, I then moved out to California and then did graduate school, 2-year graduate school in California.
Yeah, I was split between Central Florida for the beginning of high school and Northeast Tennessee to finish it. And then I went to East Tennessee State University for my undergrad. And that was enough school for me. I didn't go beyond that.
Some of these guys went to MSU. It didn't stand for Michigan State, though. It standing for making shit up.
Yeah, I did also have the same kind of issue in that I started high school in like the AP classes and then realized it was literally the exact same material, just with more homework. So I just didn't bother. Went into the retard classes and then showed up like 17% of the time.
Well,
By
I was
my
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
by my senior year, I was missing 8 credits. And there was this program in my school called credit retrieval, to where you could essentially do all of this stuff online. And if you got a 70% or higher on the final test, which you could just do right away, you would just instantly get the credit. So I got 8 of my last credits in 2 weeks. And then I also did it for other people. And 17.1% of my graduating class in my high school, I did classes for, and just did classes for other people because, why not?
Right.
There are people who could not read at a second grade level who graduated high school because of me.
I know many people that were in my same grade that I still know today, and their spelling skills are on par with my 6-year-old daughter's.
It's always the biggest sign is when people think in symbolism, which is another point that I'm going to go into the Waldorf thing, is that you see when people don't actually sound out words, they just guess what the word is and then hope they're right. Of like, this word looks like the symbol for scooter or something. They don't actually look at this syllable plus that syllable. And that's an interesting thing about the Waldorf school system and how it operates, is that they intentionally often do not teach people how to read until they're about like 7 or so, because that keeps them in the what's it called? The symbolic world for longer. Before you know how to read, you keep people in sort of a world of symbolism, and they think that that is something that you should extend further out.
That kind of reminds me of, have you guys ever seen where there's like a paragraph written and each word has the right first letter and last letter, but in the middle it's just scrambled and you can read through it like at full speed. think it's just
Yeah.
with like character recognition or the size of the word.
No, that's because you only look at the first letter and the last letter. If those are in the right place, you can read the whole word.
Yeah, at like the same speed as normal. It's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah. And that's something that's like just a thought occurred to me is that in the same way that you would think, oh, hey, you should teach your kids how to read as soon as they can. Why would you delay that? Like, that's obviously going to be bad for the kid. An obvious example that I can give of something that is definitively bad for a kid of trying to accelerate their growth is, when they put little like 1 to 2 year olds in those kind of like walkers to where they don't know how to walk yet, but they're kind of in like a sort of a harness to where they're walking around with a little platform thing. That's essentially skipping the crawling phase, and crawling is super important for the proper development of the child's like locomotive engine. And so if you skip that step of crawling for kids by putting them in one of those seats, they're going to be way worse from a locomotive or like athletic perspective.
Really?
Yeah.
Like coordination type stuff, like athletics.
Yeah, yeah.
Really? That's the
Crawling.
claim. That's the claimed outcome of that.
Yeah, crawling is really important for development. Like
I probably remember crawling a fair amount, maybe if I think about it. But I do remember like having. I think we had at least one of those. But I think the one we had was more for like it was like for eating. You know what I mean? Like it would have a little it had like a little dish thing for food, and then but it also you could roll around on it. So I do remember like going in one at times, but I wasn't in it like all the time. Like would the kid have to be in it all the time, and like in order for that to really be like an impact? Do you think? If that's the claim.
Yeah, it just depends on like how much you're trying to skip crawling and how much you're letting the baby crawl. If you're just essentially every time they're sort of out in the living room, you're always having them in that instead of just kind of on their own doing their own thing, then that would be detrimental. So it's like
well, and
dose
those things
dependent,
are and those things are convenient because sometimes mothers can leave the kids in those, knowing that as long as they can't fall down any stairs, and if they can't get out themselves, you know what I mean. If they can't crawl out of it, then they're kind of helpless in it, which means the mother can then be in the other room. Maybe she's on the phone, she's doing whatever, and she doesn't think she has to keep as much of an eye on the kid because he's kind of in that little car thing that it can only roll around and he can't get out of it. Therefore, he should be fine or whatever. So there's potentially mothers that might put their kid in that kind of as a way to alleviate their own.
Yeah, in the same way. Yeah, in the same way that you'd give a child a iPad as like a pacifier, so that you don't need to like pay as much attention to them.
By the way, dude, sorry to inject this here because it is kind of on topic, but but this is a pretty interesting like that's interesting right there what you just said, and has potential implications if that's true that people should be aware of. However, did you hear about dude? This is kind of similar though, but I just have to say because I saw this. You know how dragon fruit, like pink dragon fruit, if you've ever had it, it's like it makes your pee red, like makes your urine red, and like it's really like has a very intense like red kind of polyphenols and the flavonoids and all that in it. Anyways, there was a mother, I think it's real though, although I just saw it on like a YouTube short, but it seemed real. Unless it was all fake, but it seemed real. So I don't know. I guess you guys tell me. Okay, maybe now I'm thinking if it's not real, because I don't know. I didn't look into it further. Basically, she claimed that she had pink hair, but she was born with pink hair. There it is. Yeah, he already posted it. Yeah, that's the one. So is that real? So she was born with the pink hair because her mother ate a lot of dragon fruit while she was pregnant with her, and her hair came out pink because her mother ate a ton of dragon fruit when she was pregnant.
I would say no.
So you think that was fake then?
I'm not sure about that one.
Because like your hair color is ingrained in your DNA, and you're not going to alter DNA like mRNA by eating something that has a pink pigment to it.
So people use the dragon fruit pulp as a hair dye, and then it also does make your urine definitely a very dark color.
I would say I wouldn't fully discount it as a conceptual thing. Like I wouldn't say it is wholly impossible. but I would still lean towards it probably being fake here until like further validation of it.
Well, yeah, I'm not really. I personally didn't say whether it was real or not. I brought it up because I said I saw the video and I was like, it was linked to this, and so I brought it up to be like, yeah, because I just saw it briefly and it was. I'm just looking though. This woman's channel, like, yeah, it seems like just looking at right off her channel, it seems like this would not be real. Also, the color of pink seems like. I just know that dragon fruit is a very intense, like they do use it as hair dye, and then, like I said, just in general, and then. Like even like touching it, like if you like touch it, it will like turn your finger like red for a while. So and then it makes your urine like it can definitely change the color of your urine like big time. Like it can change the color of your actual like bowel movements too. Like you'll like if you eat a bunch of it, like the red pinkish red dragon fruit, you'll go like have a number 2 and like the bowl will be red and be like, wait, am I bleeding? But it's like, no, you're not bleeding. It's just the dragon fruit. So if you ate a bunch of dragon fruit, obviously,
I wonder if
that can happen.
makes your pee smell better instead of like asparagus where it smells horrible.
Yeah. More importantly, I linked a video of a tiny little monkey, maybe like 5 pounds, eating dragon fruit. And this is very important. Primarily because it's cute.
I mean, this girl claims she was born with the pink hair, and in that video, it shows pictures of her as a child, as a teenager, and that like, maybe her pink hair color now looks kind of synthetic, but as a child, like that does look like a dragon fruit color pink. So I don't know. The pictures are a little bit compelling of when she's young. Unless it was just dyed her whole life, even as a child, I guess, but.
We need a monkey.
I mean, a quick search says that that it's a myth and there's no scientific basis for it. That's what the Google AI says. Well, this says it won't. Well, this is actually just saying it won't cause your hair to turn pink. This is actually not saying. This is just saying if you eat it, your hair won't turn pink, which I agree. That's not even. This claim is that when the woman was pregnant, she ate a ton of it, and and it makes the child's hair permanently pink. That's the claim. It's not just to make your hair pink if you eat it. So that's what the Google AI thing was saying. So.
I just watched that video. Why would it only change the color of her head? Not her fucking eyebrows.
Yeah, and have you guys seen the guy that had the silver? He turned his whole his skin silver or blue?
The blue man?
Yeah, blue man.
Yeah, that's from silver poisoning. A certain type of silver. But yeah, Yasuke, I don't know. I kind of went on the dragon fruit pink hair thing, but yeah, what you were talking about is interesting. I don't know, that is an interesting conversation, like all of that, just because like obviously children are such a major component of life, and then the modern era, and then how children are being treated and being raised now. Anyways, I mean, we could shift to another topic, but I'm saying that is like a huge topic, and there's a lot of depth in that. And
yeah, I could go on to a more general point. Is it's sort of a Chesterton's fence problem, in that there are specific things that humans have done essentially forever, and there are all of these things that we do that we take away a part of the human development process without it really putting much thought into it, whereas and then not understanding why that thing was so important in the first place. We look at something that seems to be meaningless or inconsequential, and then we just get rid of it without any care. And with an example is that we're so far removed from our internal bodies and our internal structure. We're very much thinking in the mind, more so these days. And with that, it would go into not understanding the importance of something like crawling for development. Because whenever you learn any physical activity, you start with progressions to where you go from doing a really easy thing to gradually building yourself up. So I feel like if people did more athletic activities to where they did do those progressions, then people would be much more willing to understand that crawling is really important.
You gotta learn to crawl before you can walk.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that old phrase. Yep, that's true. And when you're 80, 90 years old, you might be crawling again at some point, crawling across the floor when you fall over. So I guess you'll be right back to it. You got to know how to do it.
No, honestly, if you have bad locomotive processes like later in life, like you're just walking funny, you have all these issues, going back to the beginning and starting to crawl as like a 30, 40, 50-year-old can be very valuable. And like going back to those basics and then slowly building yourself back up again.
That's actually kind of interesting, dude. Yeah, like almost like a. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've crawled in a while. Maybe I'll get some crawling on. It's kind
Yeah.
of interesting, dude, to think
And
about that.
where you were talking about people learning to read as like a picture versus the learning the phonetics of the letters. I just find it really interesting, like to watch my daughter as she grows up, and I get to see like how she learns things and how she retains them. And once I taught her like vowel sounds first and then like consonants and then reading very basic words, it's crazy. Like she can just pick up like an encyclopedia and sound out everything and she's able to put it together. So she's doing the exact opposite of that and not looking at it as like a picture, but instead the actual letters and their sounds. And it's crazy. Like she's just got a lot of willpower and she hates whenever you try to tell her to do something, she's like, I already know, you don't have to tell me. So like it's a good thing because she'll purposely force herself to learn things so that she can say, no, I already know. And within a year's time, her reading levels probably accelerated like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, like, dude, that makes me think because I was thinking about this earlier. Like, okay, you could sit down and teach a kid reading and writing and go through every part of it and do it the way they do now. I suppose, like, just in that like kind of one way teaching it and then memorizing it and then or what if the mother was just writing and the child, like as the mother's writing, the child could be watching her pencil on the paper, and the mother could be saying whatever the words are, the, and she'd put THE, the dragon, DRAGON, went, WENT, to, TO, the, THE, whatever, and just kind of like say what the like mother could just sort of say what she's doing if in a way, just and the child can watch it. And I think the child would just completely be able to pick up on that, and you wouldn't really have to like put it into them in any way. They can just kind of observe, just like they pick up language like that too. I think they could pick up writing like that, and it doesn't really have to be like as much of a regimented kind of protocol the way they have it now.
Yeah, like, and that's the thing that I kind of get ticked off about with public schools is because they want. It's also like with, I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but like with medical things when they're trying to tell you like specific numbers, like oh your cholesterol should be 15 or whatever. Not everybody, like everybody's different. So same thing with education. Not everybody's going to learn the same way. Like with math, for example, the way they're teaching it to my daughter, um, she wasn't really learning it. She was just memorizing it. And then I started showing her like ways that I do it in my mind, and that's the way she was able to do it in her mind. And now she can get 100 on every test without even writing anything on paper, no problem. Um, but what they were doing just wasn't working. And if I never stepped in and helped, it would have been a total failure for her with math.
I gotta say, we're spitting some gold here, and everyone is just awestruck.
Talking about bad teachers, I'll never forget this one. I think maybe the 6th grade, maybe. Spelling test. I usually made like a 80, sometimes less, right? But I studied for this one, studied my ass off, and I made 100. And I got my perfect paper back with an F because she assumed that I had cheated because I made a good grade. And I'll never forget that.
Why did you cheat?
Do what?
Somebody else was going to say congratulations, I think. And I was going to say, why did you cheat? The two dichotomies.
Dude, it's crazy what they let teachers get away with. And I've even seen in schools now, you know, they have like rooms that they can lock kids in now, like a little like prison that's basically like has like padded walls, and they can lock kids in there.
Have you ever compared prison to school? It's almost the same
Crazy.
thing.
Yeah, there's this thing in my high school called sweeps, which was if you showed up a second late to a class, after the bell rang, you would get sent to this thing called sweeps, which is where they would bring you in the cafeteria. You'd be in just chairs and you'd have to like stare at the wall for the entire class period. You couldn't do anything, couldn't do any work, couldn't read a book, nothing. But if you just didn't show up to the class at all, you wouldn't get sweeps. So if I was like gonna be 1 minute late to a class, I would just not go to school. And then, if the next period comes around and I was going to be 1 minute late to class, I would just not show up again. Then I'd show up at third period. And the third period comes around. If I'm going to be 1 minute late, might as well not show up until fourth period.
Yeah, they didn't think that one through, did they?
Yeah, because there would be punishments.
What was the punishment? What was the punishment if you came late?
You would get sent to a program called sweeps, which is where they force you to go to the cafeteria. And you would have to sit in a chair without a desk, just essentially staring at a wall, doing nothing for the entire period in complete silence.
Oh my god!
And there would be punishments for going to sweeps a certain amount of times, but there wouldn't be punishments for just not showing up.
Oh my god! Well, you'd still have punishments for not showing up, right? You have some absentee thing.
That was the absentee system, and they just didn't really think it through.
Right, they literally didn't even, if you just didn't go at all, because I think for me, you're talking high school here.
Yeah,
because I think for me, like we had definitely a whole thing where if you were late, there were certain things, and then like there was. I'd have to think about the exact, but we didn't have to sit and look at a wall. Like if you came in. But then I guess it was called tardies. You had tardies, and then you had absence or whatever. So if you were completely absent, you got marked as absent. Tardy was just late, and then the teacher would decide whether they would do it or not, I guess. And then after like a certain number, maybe it wasn't called absence, it was some name for it, if you just weren't there at all. But if those added up or whatever, there was some penalty. But I think for us, like you had like a certain allowable amount, so we would all like figure that out just and max out our allowables. Then you could always go a little over, and then beyond that, if you were going more than that, you're just kind of, you're not even in the game at all.
You're pushing
at that
it.
Point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for work. Get a certain set of
It's
it was.
It's a wall.
Yeah, it was kind of an IQ test because anybody who realized that there was no, like I showed up to my senior math class 17% of the time, still passed with like a C because the teacher was a community college teacher who just gave everybody a C at the end of the semester, like just didn't care. But yeah, I showed up 17% of the time, had no punishment whatsoever. So it's like going to this program was essentially an IQ test because if you just realized that there wasn't any punishments for not going, why would you ever go? So it was only the dumb kids who would go.
How did you not get penalized for not going? I mean, because for us, definitely, if you didn't show up, you got some marking,
Because they just overemphasized that program so much. And that was where they put all of their sort of resources into. And administration is probably just as dumb as people who go to sweeps too.
I mean, in my school, what you happen is if you're late, you get a detention like 20 minutes at lunch out of the 40-minute lunch period. Then if you're like absent for too long, like 91% or less, you get a meeting with your parents. And if you're late by a lot and you don't call the school, you get a longer detention after school if it's consistent for the week.
Yeah, mine
And your
was like
parents get
Geo
called if
said.
you're like
Oh, I
not
thought you
coming
were
in.
my bad.
Yeah, we did time for time.
Was that guy done or?
I think so.
Well, mine was like Geo said. You know what I'm saying? You had like 2 tardies would equal an absence, and you could get like 7 absences throughout the whole thing. Otherwise, you couldn't pass the class. I remember global studies or something. I was at a point where like I couldn't show up late or miss any classes at all for this one class.
That explains everything, dude. Global study? You didn't go to global study, dude? That is the
Something.
whole root of this whole thing. We solved it. Oh my gosh.
Shut it down.
I have a question.
Skipped Globe Awakenings, dude.
I have a question. Why is it called tardy and not late?
Tardy is another word for late.
So
Being
they're just trying to
unpunctual.
push.
Have you guys
Ye-
thinking of the school system and lunch? Have you any of you guys seen Where to Invade Next by Michael Moore? Because he went to France and he went to their like the poor suburb elementary school where they had a private chef, and he tried to get the kids to drink Coke, and they weren't interested in it. They were given like real food, unlike what they offered in my schooling and perhaps like a lot of the other places in America where they
Oh,
offered
mate,
pop
you
and
should,
They're
yeah.
not gonna
you
let
should
us
see
invade
schools in
France though,
Switzerland and
bro. Like
Finland.
any of these first world countries, they're not gonna. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not gonna be able to invade England or Spain or France or just one of these, one of these first world
Look at
countries.
Switzerland and
By the way,
Scandinavia.
the word tardy, I was looking it up. It is kind of connected to the word retard in a way, like the word tard, because it means like moving or acting slowly or being sluggish, therefore being late or behind time, like not on time as well as another. So but growing up, as much as people would use that word retard in some way and they would use that as insults and all of that, I'm just realizing how kids never really linked being tardy, or being like the tardy being late to class was like the same as retard. Like, did you guys ever like that was never related growing up? Like, if you were
I think
tardy,
it
you
was
were late.
I think it was probably automatically understood, like in your subconscious. So you were a tard and didn't know it.
Well, I'm saying if someone was late and they were like, "Yo, you were tardy," it's not like you were They were more. I don't know. It wasn't the same usage as kids would use retard. So, but the word is similar.
Understand exactly what you
I
mean,
mean, if
and
we
that
were
like
supposed to meet our boys somewhere, they'd be like, "Yo, you showed up late, retard."
yeah,
Well, that's a little
understand what you
different, though.
mean. Understand what
But
you mean in that like kids not knowing things that you would expect them to try to say something out. Like when I was a kid, everybody would just be super like homophobic slurs all the time. That's like 90% of what you would hear in like the 3rd grade classes. And my given name is David. And I always thought that, what if people call me David? And nobody ever called me David. But it's like, it was right there, It was right there. Nobody took it.
For me, it was
there for the taking.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you got through all right then. Well, there's a lot of Davids though.
Racism was so big in my school.
I think you just might have fucked up.
If every David was called David, that would be a lot of, because there's generally David's a somewhat more common name.
Yeah, I think you just fucked up, David. You're David from now on.
Yep. Finally, some odd years later.
The schools I went to in Florida were really racist, but it was blacks being racist to the whites because we were the minority in my school there. So
No, like for me, every person was racist to everyone. Like you'd have Indians racist to other Indians, you'd have Indians racist to black people, you would have black people racist to Chinese people, you had white people getting racist to brown people. You got everyone being racist on each other. Old school was just a mess.
are you from out west?
Wow.
I'm from the United Kingdom.
The guy named
That's the globe model's impact on the world right there.
The guy named David is running around telling us all the men are women. Okay, this all makes sense now.
I see, yeah.
It's gonna ruin it for like David Copperfield and David Allen Coe.
David Letterman.
Yeah, I think the problem there is going to be that they are Gavids. If you're in the entertainment industry, you're probably Gavid.
And there's Gaylord. Have you guys heard the surname Gaylord?
Oh yeah,
Dude, that's people's names. Yeah, that's like a name.
my brother-in-law's last name is Gayer, Gayer. Imagine
Well, there's
gay.
also women named Gay. There's also that name, obviously, but people don't really use it usually in that way. That's another
Isn't
one.
there
That's overlap.
Isn't there a box on a goes on a pallet? They call a Gaylord box. It's like 4 foot by 4 foot tall. They call it a Gaylord.
Yeah, you put like
You know, in Russia, in a place called Orenburg Oblast, there is a place called Gay. I think.
You guys ever listen to Gavin McInnes? And he like always calls stuff gay, but then he's always like, I mean gay like second grade gay.
Meanwhile, he's putting butt plugs up his ass live on broadcast.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good thing for the world that guy became irrelevant.
This escalated quickly.
It was a very odd podcast.
Yeah, it's your typical conservative pundit literally putting butt plugs up their own ass on camera to own the libs.
And like that time he kissed Milo Yiannopoulos, like French kissed him on some talk show or something.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah.
And I wish I went back to being unaware of that.
All right. Where were we?
Talking about David.
Kids named David at racist schools.
I think we need a new topic. I'm just getting back. Well, one thing, like, what was Jeremy? Could you summarize? I heard a little part of it, but and if anyone else has any topic, keep it on your mind. We could shift to something as well. But this could just be a short thing. But what was Arwen saying? Did he say? Was he saying he has kind of like, what was he saying about the 24-hour sun and like the square thing? I don't know if anyone could like steelman that, or because I only heard like a part of it. But was he putting something forth?
It was like a rectangular looping thing, I think, like Pac-Man.
Okay.
And the way that it sounded like Mercator projection type stuff. Like a Mercator Pac-Man.
Oh, like a Mercator, like with the sun going over it, and then the sun would have to. You know what is interesting is like, well, that's like, I guess that seam would be like in the South Pacific. But you know, they say the Pacific Ocean takes up like, well, I mean, in terms of their sizes, but like they claim that the Pacific Ocean covers like half of the entire Earth's surface, like the globe surface. And if you turn the globe around like to the other, like there's like a side of it on Google Earth where pretty much all you see is the Pacific Ocean. Anyways, I'm just saying it's massive, but that's where like I guess like the seam would be, right? Like in that kind of. There's that whole thing of like when like Flat Earth dude, when he talks about like that there's no like there's no trans-Pacific race, you know, that goes from like Hawaii over to Japan. Anyways, I'm just saying it is like in that area. But okay, so he was talking about like a square thing that would like separate there. And then the sun.
I don't
like,
know where exactly. I heard something about the Pacific Ocean though after this.
Well, how does that solve the sun going around you though in Antarctica? If it was like a square map like that, are you sure? Is that what? Well, we could shift to something else. I just wondered if if somebody just knew, if somebody, yeah, because I came in halfway through and I thought he was putting it forth, so I just wondered if I had missed a part of it.
Where you're speaking, you're saying there's like a gap between like Japanese people and Hawaiian people. Like there's no transition from one to the other. I'm just not sure I understood what you're saying.
No, I was kind of going on a bunch of other things. First of all, I guess like Arwen you guys were talking about that. I was asking what he meant. Someone mentioned like the square map, like a Mercator, and then I just started saying that like the idea that the sun would like loop like some kind of Pac-Man thing, and I was just saying okay, well that the seam of that would be like in the South Pacific, and then I just jumped to saying that thing like how large they say the Pacific is, and then what are the real distances in the Pacific, and then yeah, there has been some discussion too about like the path from Hawaii to Japan, essentially. And like Flat Earth Dude, like Kenny, he talks about how he thinks it's potentially like a much greater distance than we're being told, for example, is one. Although I don't want to like totally quote him on that entirely, but I think I'm pretty sure he's mentioned that when he's talked about it. Because there's like transatlantic sailboat races, but there's not like these trans-Pacific in the same one, and there's like very little like documentation of taking that path. So that's kind of all like separate kind of side things related to it.
Yeah, when you look at like I'll just say typical layout of the flat Earth, like when you look at those flight paths and stuff like that, the distance, like it puts Hawaii in kind of a weird spot, far away from everything. What makes like Northeast Asia and North America much closer for a much longer coast or border, if you will. But it just reminded me when we were talking about the people, and
Yo, your mic's mad low, bro. I got my volume all the way up, dude. I got my bad earbud in too, though, so maybe it's me.
is that better?
Oh, that is way better. No, but
All
dude,
right.
that is what. Yeah, that is true, dude. Like, if okay, here. In fact, why don't you go ahead and say what you're gonna say, and I'll pull up the screen share on this real quick because it'll be fun we can look at this for a
Well,
sec.
I just think about like if the Earth is shaped like probably most of us presume, which would put a lot of the land masses much closer together. I've been down this rabbit hole for a while with, and I take a lot of interest in like language and cultures and how things, how people have traveled and some cultures you can see how it's kind of morphed from one to the other over time. But I've been on this thing about like Cherokee Indians uh, sharing a lot of phonetics with like Hebrew and like potentially the United States, what we call the United States today, being like what once was like ancient Egypt and Israel and like the Nile River, has like three rivers that feed it, and the Mississippi has seven, and in the Bible it says that the river that they're referring to all the time has seven tributaries or seven heads. So then, like the name of Memphis, all the pyramids that are found along the Mississippi River. There's even towns called Mound City, Cairo. Um, just if any of y'all ever heard of any of that or looked into any of that with like this being where a lot. Oh, the other thing I learned recently was Noah's Ark was made out of gopher wood, and the only place it grows is in Florida and southern Georgia. Any of y'all heard any of that or looked into any of that?
I don't necessarily buy the that's essentially the Mormon idea is that
Yeah, I keep coming across Mormon stuff when I'm looking at that.
Yeah, they're the ones that are very big into that theory. My conception would go into a couple different points. One is that I would postulate that in biblical times, there were essentially two empires at the point. There was the Roman Empire and the Tartarian Empire. And if you look at essentially throughout all of history, there's like a pretty clean divide between empires in a particular point in that kind of like Central Asia area. And America was sort of a big part of the like Tartary Empire. although it got hit hardest by the sort of worldwide earthquake and everything, which would go into a part of Revelation that talks about how there were essentially two horns, and then there would be an earthquake, which one of the horns breaks off, and then the other becomes the dominant one. So under that conception, we've essentially been living in the Roman Empire since that event. And up until like the Civil War or so was the destruction of the remnants of the Tartary sort of empire. Because a couple of interesting things about the Native Americans, as you were saying, is like Native Americans have a lot of mythos about, as an example, people who have hair as snakes. They have snake hair. And how would you describe somebody with curly hair when you're a Native American who's never seen curly hair? You would describe them as having their hair looks like snakes because it's all curly and stuff. So in that conception, there's a couple interesting things that would kind of point to that. One is just the absolute economic unviability of the slave trade. And also just there's so much to say that both blacks and whites existed in America before like the 1776 like Pilgrim Society kind of came over. The Cherokee were 30% white. Some tribes were like 50% black. Like there was an integration with massive cities all along the Mississippi. And the Civil War was essentially a pretext to sort of destroy those as being the remnants of the previous Tartarian civilization.
So this would be why, like, history has been wiped of Tartaria, and like it's been made to be like a complete myth, and because it's being squashed by essentially the Roman Empire that still is.
Yes. What's the best way to
sense.
destroy your enemy? Make people think your enemy never existed.
Oh yeah, and it would only take a couple generations to just completely wipe it.
Yeah, it's really like if even in the modern day with all of this internet and everything, if they wanted you to disappear, like people would not know you exist pretty quickly. People are way too confident in the confidence in how stable information is.
Oh yeah, I mean, in 2025, we are still essentially serfs, and maybe even more so than we were during like what we refer to as the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
We're like cattle.
You call yourself a serf when you're getting waterboarded every other day.
And I think that's another reason for the deception of it being a globe, is because it creates offense. Like nobody, we learned growing up about all these people that traveled and went to new places and exploring, and it's like it just ended overnight. Nobody does that anymore because they fooled us into thinking that there is nowhere else to search. When I think potentially, you could travel to what we're calling Antarctica and keep walking and possibly take you to more land or a different place that we don't even know exists.
Yeah, the globe is definitely has the quality of having to be able to imprison the mindset of what the whole world is, because it's limited, because a sphere is limited. Like it's a ball, that's all that can fit on the ball is all that can fit on there, because it has a certain radius and a certain square footage of land potential. And then when they plop those continents on there and they say this is it, a little bit of ice on the top, a pole on the top, pole on the bottom, then yeah, that limits the entire conception of what people would, if they believe that that's what the earth is, that would be it. So there wouldn't really be anywhere for there to be hidden land necessarily, or any other land. So yeah, like if they have access to other land that they wanted to keep private for themselves, then by selling the globe perception, that would have the potential to kind of imprison people's mindsets and make them have a very limited worldview of what the extents of the plane are. the plane is to where they then can hide that other land.
Yeah, it's like the explorers ended with like Richard Byrd, the Navy admiral, and it's like, in my opinion, it's like he got back and he was like, "Hey guys, there's more places that we can go. We should start going this way." And then they're like, "Nope, stop that project. We're going to the moon." You know.
Yeah, then he kind of vanished from the scene too. Like when he was on that TV show, he was talking about it. Yeah, it doesn't line up to what happened after that. Like if what he was saying was,
Yeah,
was the
then they
case. Like,
started putting it out that he was talking about a hollow Earth and all this, which made him look kind of crazy. And I think that's what kept people from like saying, "No, guys, we need to listen to him." You know, like, why are we not paying attention? So I think they just covered it up with some falsities that he claimed that I don't think he truly did. Did you guys see any of the people that used their high-powered telescopes looking at the blood moon the other night, and how you could view, I think it was Venus through part of the moon?
Is there video of that?
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
I'm trying to find it. Seen it randomly, like yesterday morning.
Thank you.
I saw the picture on that one, but I haven't seen the video. I look like a son of a bitch. Just no luck.
It was cloudy for me. I went out there and I couldn't even see. Yeah, I'll be right back in a second. I'm gonna mute myself. I'll be back. Try to find that video.
This is kind of off topic for a minute, but what do you guys think about all these recent natural disasters we've been having, like that storm just like yesterday through the Midwest with all them hurricanes? I can't remember how many tornadoes. I mean, how many tornadoes they had, but it was like 15 of them or something in one night. And
I was in one of them.
were you? Holy shit!
Yeah, I was sitting in Arnold, Missouri, waiting to unload, and I was on the back side of the building, and it went past through the parking lot to the front side of the building.
Holy shit! I mean, if you think about all that, and then all the wildfires that have been, in California, and then there were some fires elsewhere. Yeah, it's gotten really kind of. I mean, I don't ever remember in a certain period of time in the past where we've had quite so much, natural disasters as far as tornadoes and wildfires and all that kind of stuff. And United States is not the only place this has been going on. It's been going on pretty much worldwide for about the last year. It's crazy. I mean, there's been a lot of natural disasters happening. A lot more than I ever remember. Anyway.
You see the law Texas passed? I think it was Texas. No cloud seeding. They made it illegal.
What was that you said they made illegal?
Cloud seeding. Basically,
Chemtrail.
yeah,
Chemtrails.
chemtrails, I guess, would be the popular term for it.
So which is it, chemtrails or cloud seeding?
I mean, I don't know. However you want to recognize it.
I prefer I prefer to call it fan fog, or like inputting a slur in for fan fog. Obvious
Jeez,
one.
What's
you're just
fan fog?
When you see perfectly clear sky, you see a whole bunch of lines go in the sky and they fan out until it becomes sort of a hazy paste that covers the entire sky and just makes everything sad and gay. You can notice that people's moods directly get worse under those conditions.
You need to move somewhere then.
Yeah,
Somewhere
I mean,
without
it's just
are
a problem.
Are you in Seattle or something?
Nah, Phoenix. It's just a problem of being in cities.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
You're not going to find a place with more sun than Phoenix.
What do you think? Yasuke, like, what do you think about, like, since we're kind of on that topic a little bit, what do you think they're doing with them? Because I noticed, like, they're definitely where I'm at, like, currently they're intermittent. I've definitely been at times where they're like daily, you know, at different places I've been just in my life in general. In this modern time, I'm not talking about in 1994, but the way it is today. So, like, what do you think it is about the like cyclical nature or like intermittent nature? Like, do you think, you know, about it? Like, do you think that's like has to do with weather modification or like what do you think on that?
Yeah, so I would entirely frame this around things that I know to be like real, things that I know to understand, things that are in sort of my wheelhouse. So the way that I would understand it that doesn't have to invoke anything that I don't know or that I'm like, speculating on is that, well, one thing is that the whole, you know, millionaires don't believe in astrology, but billionaires do, in that there's definitive sort of cycles of what the vibe is like, and they're sort of very in tune with that. While also, my understanding is that I don't have to invoke any literal poison in cloud seeding or geoengineering for it to have a dramatic effect on people, because simply blocking out the sun is enough to dramatically change the way that people feel and the way that people go about their days. People feel nicer on days that are good. So if they want to use this as a tool to, you know, make people sadder on this day so that they're more reactive to whatever the new current thing is, or that this would be a time where generally people would feel happy. So it's like, boom, just punch them in the gut and make them not feel happy. So that would make sense with, you know, times where they want to have a bunch of stuff and then times where they want to have less stuff. And that would be sort of my framing and conception, is that getting rid of the sun is poisoning people. There doesn't have to be literal like poison that's entering your lungs or anything for geoengineering to be harmful to people.
All right, no, I got you there. Yeah, for sure. So just the block, an agenda to block the sun to one degree or another, because yeah, like there's a lot of impacts of that with vitamin D levels as well, and the whole medical thing around that. And when people have low vitamin D levels, they tend to have other susceptibilities to other ailments and autoimmune diseases and worsening of conditions, which they then go to doctors to get pills for. So
Yeah, one of the main side effects is depression, and the most prescribed pill in America is antidepressants.
So yeah, you're saying just block the blocking the sun factor. Yeah. So you're just saying if that's all it was, like so you think that is an agenda, or that it's a result, or are you saying it's an agenda, or both? Like that's one thing you're saying you can say is going to be a negative effect from it.
Yeah, so to me, it's very clear that they hate you and they want you to suffer. And blocking out the sun is a very powerful tool to make you suffer. And it doesn't need to be anything else aside from that to be an effective poison.
Wait, who hates you?
Those in power, whatever term you want to use for them.
Or handlers.
Because the other two frameworks that exist is that there's one which is that they just follow the money, but like China is a place that actually follows the money as a philosophy more, and they do significantly more things that actually help their population. Whereas the US and US corporations, etc., they do not. If their pristine goal was to follow the money, their actions would actively reflect that. But when they do actions that don't follow the money, it's specifically things that make your life and your time worse. And the other idea would be that it is an incompetency crisis, to where, oh, all of these people are just incompetent and they don't know what they're doing. The problem with that is that the results wouldn't be so consistent in making your life worse. Whereas if they were incompetent, then they would occasionally roll to get decisions that make your life better.
Well, wouldn't just pure corruption and their interest in padding their pockets at your expense, that would satisfy that, wouldn't it? Without any
why
consideration to you. They don't care about you. They don't hate you or like you. They're just disconcerted with you and concerned about themselves.
that's why I explained the greed angle with China, in that China is actually greedy. You look at Chinese corporations and they actually do things to maximize profits. An example that I would give in like video games, right? Use video games and aesthetics as an example. Western media will put in ugly, racially ambiguous lesbian girl bosses in popular franchises. Uh, and that's not a thing that is economically the right play at all. Whereas China will put in a bunch of hyper optimized anime waifus who all look very similar to each other, and they're just like what would be considered attractive to that designation. They just put attractive people and attractive aesthetics into things because that's actually what sells more. So the Chinese prove that they're actually doing things for financial incentives. And the Western media sources, they're explicitly not doing things that are for profit motive. They're putting these ugly things in there for another reason. It should be pretty obvious what those other reasons are, but it cannot be for profit.
I think you might have just like been a little bit discriminating against white, lesbian, whatever you said. I mean, wouldn't it make sense to, not necessarily focus on their sexuality and more so on their ability to do the job, maybe?
I mean, I'm just talking about like the characters and putting these things in media. Nobody likes Zendaya. Zendaya has never drawn a single penny more than putting like some, uh, you know, more conventionally attractive redhead in some kind of position. Zendaya does not sell tickets, but they put Zendaya in every movie, even though very few would actually consider that person to be attractive. So in that sense, like when you're making a video game character, there's no such thing as like, oh, we need to hire a specific actor or like have representation in roles. You could literally make them be whatever. So you can make them be as optimized as possible to sell things. And then you put some like super big jacked old black woman in there, which is not a very popular aesthetic. And you can see these things in the numbers for pieces of media that have direct quantifiable numbers. Is an example in one particular video game, the one that did the Arcane TV show. There's this character, Ambessa, who's super jacked grandma black woman with gray hair and just, bodybuilder man aesthetics, like super big girl boss. This character was very powerful, as in would win you a lot of games, but still was not picked because nobody likes this aesthetic. If you just made this some, attractive character, then people would play this character so much more often. But the fact that it is not attractive is actively a detrimental business decision. You cannot make sense of this decision by saying that it is based on money. My point, just so strong, so powerful. I do think it's a general thing that is probably the biggest lie of the modern world, is that they do everything for the sake of profit. Because it is a very convenient excuse to hide actually evil intention. If you think they're just doing things for profit, then they can't be evil.
Say the agenda.
Well, a lot
Say
of
it.
it's for the money. A lot of it's for the money, but I would assume that there are things where the money doesn't even matter anymore because their ultimate goal is control, and with more money, you control more. That's just facts. You know what I'm saying? The bum on the street doesn't control anything compared to what I control, and I don't control anything compared to what Elon Musk controls. So the more money, the more control you have. But it gets to a point to where, right, we got the money. What do we do now to control them? And then you would start doing things not for them. Like the money doesn't. It's kind of like a side thing. Like, yeah, we still need money, but we want to control their minds and shit. So we're gonna do this, even though we would make more money if we did something different.
Yeah, money is only useful for the sake of controlling the world. Like, what is the point of money if you're not going to do anything with it? You're generally going to want to instill your worldview onto the world.
They're using it for they use the money for the control. So yeah, if you gotta make a little less money because you want to promote some, weird thing or whatever, whereas the other thing that's not weird would have made more money. It's like, well, whatever, we're still making money on it. Maybe not making as much, but we can push our agenda now.
Yeah. Like, normie audiences loved that new Top Gun movie, because that new Top Gun movie from like a year ago was very much a normal movie. Like, that movie could have existed in the 90s. Whereas if you took any other random movie from today and tried to make it in the 90s, like, there'd be lynchings happening in the streets. You know what I'm saying? People would be going up to people and saying hi, because things that are made today would just not be accepted 20 years ago.
Yeah, but not to counterplay here, but just to say, isn't that the tendency how it always has been, kind of to push the boundaries and to introduce new values and thought processes in the minds of the people which consume these things, which might change some processes inside them and overall has an impact on society?
Depending on the timeline that you're looking at, yes. If you're talking since 1900, maybe like 20 years or so before that, yes.
Yes.
But yeah, just on the scale of like the whole of human existence, no. Human existence has been typically, and in a lot of countries it still is, very resistant to change. It's a relatively modern concept that of just accepting any change for what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of catalyzed through the media culture, which is what I tried to say.
Yeah. A clear example of this is divorce rates around the world all went up around the same time in, I think it was the late 1950s or so. Worldwide, divorce rates went up everywhere. And this was before you had sort of the same level of shared culture. The only thing that all of these countries shared together was media. And there were 3 very popular movies that came out about a year or so before the rates went up that were essentially glorifying divorce. There was like American Divorce, the movie, where these movies were essentially saying, hey, it's a good thing to get divorced. Like, you go, girl boss. Like, if you're a little bit, like, if this marriage isn't perfect and it's not like you're still in the honeymoon phase, you should divorce your husband. And then in a lot of these movies too, the husband got back together with them and remarried them later on, as if like, oh yeah, you can just go through this phase and nothing bad will happen. So that's probably the clearest sign you could see to show how media is a military tool to influence people's thoughts.
So your thesis would be that just be a field study, and they look at the impact of those movies and see, okay, it worked,
My thesis would be that Hollywood is a military tool. And then here is circumstantial evidence that would show that. Obviously, it can't be causal. Does firm facts have anything to say as a rebuttal?
I don't think that what you just said is actually in debate here, because I think it's quite known that plots and stuff of movies gets consulted to oversee some things in the movies, and maybe to even give some, I don't know, vehicles or airplanes to movie companies, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any movie that's about war has explicit oversight from the U.S. military. Like, there's not a single Hollywood war movie that doesn't have U.S. military oversight. It's the same thing with video games, like Halo, Call of Duty, all of those like really popular game series literally have funding from the U.S. military. Which also goes into a point in that I would look at like the YouTube comment section of like an emotional song from a soundtrack from a Halo game. And all of the comments are just thousands of comments of like, me and my brother used to play this game as kids. And we both signed up for the military and he didn't come back. So I come back to the song and remember the good old days. And there's just like thousands of comments with that exact same anecdote. And it's just like, yeah, it makes sense that these games are essentially military recruitment tools.
Oh, that's crazy, dude. Yeah, all those video games of all the, well, that would make sense. Like the individuals that are attracted to that, like especially like the more militaristic, like realistic ones, that they might have like programming in there, yeah, to try to kind of sway the mindset of it. Because like someone who's attracted to that, I mean, I played my fair amount of first-person shooters in my life, but I've never really played the ones that are like the military that are really realistic, or you're like blowing limbs off and stuff. I kind of always liked the ones that were more like somewhat more.
You played CS?
Like Doom and Unreal Tournament, ones that are a little bit more
arcadey.
Yeah, arcadey, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, how do we get on this? Or yeah, or we're I guess I kind of just came in a second ago. So where are we at with it? Or with this what you were saying?
It's essentially they hate you, and through their actions, there is no other viable option than they hate you. They don't do things for money. They do. The only way to make sense of it is because they hate you.
I mean, they seem to, say like probably a lot of hate, but do you think they just hate themselves?
Probably too. Like not liking anything. The only thing they like is hate itself.
Yeah, so you're saying like back to the chemtrail thing, like the blocking the sun would be correlative to kind of dumbing us down in different ways and just making us weaker, like maybe linked to also like GMOs and less nutrition in the food and all these kinds of things. You think it would be connected to that?
Yeah, biggest example would just be iron fortification in food. It's something that you explicitly have to add to it. It's not something that you do because the process is cheaper. Yet it's incredibly clear that it is nothing but negative for health.
What? Jeez.
Yeah, Scott, I have a question for you. No pressure. I don't want to put you on the spot. Is there
For sure.
any actress or actor in America that you think is um
Normal.
yeah, normal or attractive?
So I'm not going to pretend like I, on a primitive level, can't get tricked, but it's like a more of a logical thing to where it's like, okay, uh, there's like that mental barrier. It's like with like your not your sister, but like your friend's girl, your friend's wife. It's like no matter how much you think of them as attractive, there's like 0.00% attraction there, to where like they're so far like off the table that you would that any thought of lustfulness would never cross your mind.
Yeah,
So
I can follow. Yeah.
yeah, so I take that same philosophy with you know these people.
Smart. Thank you. Well, I see Taylor here. Taylor, how's it going? I hope your observation went well. Taylor was out yesterday with the laser, and I think with a theodolite. That's pretty exciting.
Nice.
Yep, I've been up
Leffling.
on my experiments. I literally just got home.
Wow.
Yeah. I did like 5 or 10. I mean, I did a bunch. I went there and I was originally looking at how things like affect, like how the time of the day affected the height, and like how the temperature affected the height, which would kind of be synonymous. So that was the first thing I did, and then I shot the laser over, what was it, 17 miles? How many miles was it? 12 miles, yeah. And yeah, I could see it, but the laser was kind of dim, so I would like to have it. Andrew's actually going to send me a better laser, but yeah, I mean, it worked. And so yeah, it was over 12 miles, and it was a blue laser that Andrew gave me, and it was leveled, like Dan leveled it, and yeah, if we had a more powerful laser, we could probably do more and see like what elevation it would need to be at to basically reach my eyes, but we kind of worked with what we had and made some videos. Anyway, and then what did we do next? We went to Marriott, which is where Soundly went to take his Lake Pontchartrain picture of the notorious curving Lake Pontchartrain Bridge. And we went there and we were able to finesse the manager to let us have a room on the 15th floor, which is where he went. And I got some pictures of Lake Pontchartrain from that view. And then I went and got some drone footage of the Lake Pontchartrain Bridge. And then I went back to the original Rainier Landing to take theodolite images of the buildings at a later time of day. And then, oh yeah, and then on the drone, I also got a drone footage of the sun rising. So that's about it.
Wow. Have you started to analyze your data yet? Like, for instance, did you find any? Oh yeah, true enough. You just said that.
No,
Thank you.
I haven't had time to like do absolutely anything. I'm just eating like for the first time.
That's pretty fun. Great job.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. But yeah, things definitely look different in the day and nighttime. I'll tell you that. There were some things that we could not see very much during the daytime that we could see at night. Some things that we could not see during the night that we could see during the day, and vice versa, whatever. So I haven't analyzed it yet at all, but I do notice a lot of differences there. And then, of course, Lake Pontchartrain, with your eyes look straight up flat. The bridge looks straight up flat. But if you use like a curved lens, like a theodolite lens, it can look curved. I've noticed that. It really depends on like the camera lens that you're looking at. With your eyes, with a normal iPhone camera, with a drone camera, it looks straight. But for some reason, with the theodolite lens in particular, it's like hyper curved. I think that's just because like the intense magnification in such a short, small lens. So I did like one, two, three, four cameras in total, and only in the theodolite lens did it look curved whatsoever. And then what else? I haven't analyzed much, but the sunrise was interesting. It was like coming up, it was like really like distorted and elongated, and then it just like very quickly like popped into shape. And it was just it just seems like more of a distortion instead of like something that's naturally happening. Yeah, I don't know. I'm about to watch the video again. But yeah, I saw that.
How high above the water was the laser, if you don't mind me asking?
It was 13 feet, and I was 8 feet in total. I was 8 feet in total. The laser was 13 feet off the water. We measured for both, and there should have been 8 feet of curvature. So theoretically, he should have had to be, was it 4 feet higher, right, or 4 feet lower to fit my eyes. He was on a pier, and I was like standing on the Premier landing grass. So like I'm kind of confused with the curvature thing, like with the laser. Like it's supposed to go over your head, or I guess so, right? It's supposed to go over. It's supposed to need to be like theoretically on a globe. You'd have to move the laser pointer down, no, up, right? I don't know. I'm
That's
not
right.
even sure.
Yeah, that's right. Unless
Yeah.
the laser somehow bending down.
Right. Yeah, it should go over your head, and you'd have to bend it down, right?
Oh yeah. If you let's presume there was no plane or atmosphere. Yeah, if it was parallel to the ground, you could just have it remain parallel. But yeah, on the globe, they would be uh not parallel, so it would be tilting up, I guess, from the laser's point of view.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure all that out. Like, anyway, I just recorded our heights and I made a video, and it was cool because Dan had the laser on a leveler. He had it on the theodolite level, and right before we went, I had the idea to tape a leveler on the laser, like literally like one of those levels, that you put like on a picture frame or something. Because I was like, how am I going to get this thing level? Because any little small tilt will make a huge difference. So like I was like, okay, we're gonna put it on the theodolite level, and we're gonna tape a laser. We're gonna tape a level on there, like just a normal like construction leveler, like 1 foot long. And so it works. I was surprised. It works. But we
Yeah.
just need a more powerful laser. It was also kind of foggy at that time. So there were things that obviously could be improved, but for the most part it worked. But then actually we're lucky we did it right in time because the sun came up and I could not see the laser anymore at all. It just vanished because it's over 12 miles. So you can imagine, like, it's kind of faint.
Oh yeah. To walk 12 miles, that's quite a
That's
distance.
Yep. Yeah, let's put this thing on. Okay.
Taylor, have you watched the movie or the documentary called Helio Sorcery? I'm not sure if I asked you already.
Yes, I have. Can you hear me or something? Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it was cool. Thank you so much.
Oh wow, Taylor, I'm just reading something here about biogenesis. I didn't even know there was a law called. Let me just pull it up here. It's called the law of biogenesis or biogenic law. It states that life only arises from pre-existing life, not from any non-living matter. And it says here that this principle has never been contradicted. And I guess it came from Louis Pasteur's experiments in the 19th century. I didn't even realize there was a law called law of biogenesis. That's
Yep.
interesting.
I got a quiz question wrong about that. Like, can life form from non-life? And then they're like, no, life can't form from non-life. And I was like, wait, don't y'all teach the theory of abiogenesis though? And then they ended up getting me my point back. But it's just like, yeah, that law, abiogenesis contradicts that law in biology.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got your point back. Great work.
Yeah, I figured, that's what they're asking about. I think the teacher even thought about it for a second too. It's pretty stupid, you know. You gotta take that law out, right? If you're gonna teach abiogenesis, you gotta remove that law.
Right?
Yep.
I hope you got to finish that video with the 4 professors on God versus evolution. I think that had a
I
great.
haven't even got to sleep since then.
Oh,
Sorry.
have you guys heard about the My Pillow?
The what?
The My Pillow?
My pillow? Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard about it.
Oh, I highly recommend getting it for you guys. Because if you only, let's say if you only get a few hours of sleep at night, uh, the quality of sleep that you do get, makes a difference. So I think the My Pillow is one of the best pillows ever made. I basically hand them out as gifts to family members. I recommend them to friends. It has like a 10-year warranty from getting flat. You can wash it. It was the official pillow of the National Sleep Foundation because it helped keep this. Supposedly, they say it helps keep the sciatic nerve in the neck straight. So similar like a water hose. If you kink the hose, the pressure builds, and then you gotta unkink it. So that's why people move around in bed because they're trying to unkink the nerve in the neck. But this pillow helps you guys literally sleep in the same position on your back or your side.
It's not my pillow. It said I was up doing experiments all night. Normally I would get sleep.
Yeah. Feel free to check it out. I think it includes like a 60-day return period. If you don't like it, you can just return it. But
That's dope.
yeah. He was actually, the thing about it was when he supported Trump, they went after him and then they took him off the National Sleep Foundation pillow list. Tried to ban the pillow. Yeah, Gio, I recommend it, or everyone in the chat. I highly recommend the My Pillow. My friends gave me stellar reviews too. I don't think any of my friends didn't like the pillow.
I heavily disagree in that I can give pretty specific reasons too, in that they're essentially a plastic polymer, like a plastic foam. And the problem, especially with that, is that when they compress, it essentially blows out a bunch of plastic particles everywhere that you're putting right next to your face, right next to your breathing holes. It's very not good. A couple other options you can have is buckwheat pillows, as in you essentially just take a pillowcase. There'll be ones that are kind of specially designed for it, not super expensive, and then just put a bunch of buckwheat in there, and it so perfectly can like morph to your neck. It's a game changer in terms of like optimally being placed right at the curve of your spine to where you're getting perfect support, to where it feels like your head is kind of weightless.
Amazing.
Yeah, so there's buckwheat, there's wool pillows, and then you can also just bundle up a towel. Just take a 100% cotton towel, maybe 2, and then just bundle it up under your neck while you're sleeping on your side or something. That is another option that is zero plastic involved.
Great point. Yes. Yeah, I've tried to get rid of all my polyester clothing, and I noticed you were mentioning the cotton and the linen in the chat. That's great.
Yeah, it's a very similar thing with beds too, in that, beds that have a bunch of plastic in it with springs, you're constantly putting a bunch of air in and out in that, which explodes a bunch of polyester everywhere into the air. Whereas I sleep on wrestling mats. And while it technically is made out of more of a plastic polymer, there's no air that gets into it. So as long as I put, a linen or cotton sheet over it, I'm not absorbing any of that. None of that is being poofed up into the air.
Great thinking. Sleep is wild. I mean, we're just laying there and we're so vulnerable.
Yeah, that's a big point in that, to get better sleep, you have to be vulnerable. And that if you are turbo stressed out, you are not going to get good sleep.
Yeah.
If you need to sleep with one eye open, you're not even getting half the sleep you could.
Great point.
I am just dropping gems out here. Nobody. Few are taking the bait.
Wait, what are your other gems? I didn't hear the first two, I guess.
I'm lurking.
Past hour, 2 hours has just been nothing but gems, Interesting
quick
point
drop,
after interesting
quick
point.
drop on them. Give me the TLRDR.
God, don't wear underwear. Like you're just putting your balls in a prison.
Yeah.
That was one of the more jokey ones, but it's still true.
What about boxers?
What do you think about mixed fabrics?
Loose cotton boxers can be okay, yeah. The ones that you would see as the classical thing, to where they're not nut huggers. They're not skin tight in that sense. Those would be good.
Why would you want your junk swinging all over the place?
You are your balls. If your balls are not free, you are not free.
All right,
It's like free the nipple.
That's that's the whole problem with the globe right there. That sums it up.
Yeah.
I definitely prefer boxer briefs. They make my sack feel nice and secure, more comfortable. Yeah.
I mean, you can make very similar arguments that are common with bra arguments, in that there are a lot of health concerns about wearing bras for women. And then it's just, taken, you take the same arguments that are used against bras and just use them for male underwear, and a lot of them will fit.
Yeah, but I don't want my balls to get saggy as I age.
True. You want to get proper blood flow into your balls.
No, I want to be that old man that when he goes golfing, everybody's like, "Is that his balls hanging out there?"
Yeah.
What was that you said about wearing a bra for underwear? Is that what it takes to hold yours up?
No. It's that there are a lot of arguments against wearing bras.
I'm just teasing you.
Yeah. Which, an argument that is made for why bras were made to exist was because, when they were putting all of these male to females into positions of power, bras hide the fact that their chests are so weirdly shapen. Same thing with high heels becoming popular, and that high heels mimic a pelvic tilt and can make a male spine look feminine. But that's just me adding another.
Wow, those are gems right there.
Yeah.
Instead of over the shoulder boulder holder, it's under the groin loin swing.
Yeah. Somebody asked a question about mixed fabrics. I am a Christian, but I am not a Sabbath keeper in that sense. I don't think that you need to autistically hold on to the old law, even though most people here who are into scripture are probably of that delineation. I think that it's generally a good idea not to have mixed fabrics, but as long as the materials that you're using are fine. For example, if it's a linen cotton blend, those are the only sort of blends that I have. So I will have mixed fabrics as long as they don't have any material that I wouldn't wear 100% of. If I'm not going to wear 100% spandex, I would not wear a 98 cotton 2% spandex blend.
Religious beliefs are not really, you should avoid like polyester and rayon though, because the plastics are really bad for you.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of anything polyester. It does something very weird to static electricity. Polyester, that is nasty stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like some of the plastic stuff is overblown. Like you know how if you keep like a water bottle in your car that's been open, it'll start tasting weird after a while. But if the bottle's been sealed the entire time, it tastes completely fine. I definitely feel like heat and I guess oxidization of stuff affects it a lot. But I feel like there's a lot of things that are plastic that are not just spilling microplastics into your bloodstream. And you don't have to be autistic about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of degrees, but the plastics don't have any taste whatsoever. So if you're getting to the point to where you're actually tasting plastics, you're getting an exponentially inordinate dose. In the same, the biggest form of microplastics that you could possibly have is those Keurig coffee machines that you'd have in office spaces and stuff, to where it's essentially a little cup of coffee that has boiling water going through the plastic, and then you quickly get a cup of coffee in the end. That has orders of magnitude more polyester, more plastic that you'd be consuming through that than essentially any other source that you could have. So it is a matter of degrees. And in that, you will have the most benefit from getting rid of the highest sources of plastic.
I would think one of the worst ones would be people that drink soda out of plastic bottles, because you've seen what Coca-Cola and Dr. Pepper and all those beverages can do to metal. I did an experiment, my science project in middle school was the different effects of different liquids on metal. So there wasn't even a nail left in the cup of Coca-Cola. So if it's inside of a plastic bottle, it's got to be etching away at the inside of that plastic and adding those microplastics into the liquid.
Yeah, that'd definitely be a case. I've seen stores in Arizona that will have water that is intended to be sold be sitting out for 3+ days in the Arizona summer sun.
Oh, yeah.
And this is water that is being sold to consumers in the store. So they're going to go to the store, see it in the cold water section, and not know that has been there's more plastic than water in there.
Here, I'll tell you a good one. So where I work is on an industrial road, and on the other side of the road is a factory called Premium Waters. A buddy of mine is the warehouse manager over there. Over 170 different brands of bottled water come from 2 different tanks. One tank is our local city water filtered. The other tank is from a spring that's about 15 miles out in the county that's been filtered. So whether you buy Target's brand bottled water or Crystal Geyser or Publix brand or whatever, it's essentially all the same water with a different label. And to make it even better, our local city water comes out of a local river, and 30 miles upstream is a place called Nuclear Fuel Services, right along the river, that claims they don't do anything with the river, but
So, what is one of the worst things about using plastic today?
I think the fact that it gets introduced into your body, and plastics come from oil, and they're known to cause cancer or abnormal cells.
But with regard to that,
Biggest.
It doesn't degrade. It's like it takes like some crazy number of years. If you throw it away out on the ground, it'll just stay there for years and years and years and years and years, right?
Yeah, except for there's this machine that's made, and they use it in Europe. It looks like a big, huge propane tank. Basically, it opens in half, and you can put plastics in it and use pressure and heat, and turns it into oil.
Yeah, you can cut it, you can convert it, you sure can. But I don't know. And just using that analogy, that's one of the reasons plastics are bad. It's because they don't decompose. So if they're not decomposing, are they really contaminating, the liquid that's inside?
Oh, I don't know. That was just a guess. I would think it'd have to be, though. That stuff, cola is like so corrosive.
Yeah, microplastics. Most common thing that's really talked about them is with like endocrine systems and hormonal disruption.
Yeah,
And
thyroid.
the whole literally like soy boy. Microplastics are a very similar thing, and that it affects a lot of your very like fundamental systems. It's also linked with like fertility issues, gut issues, lung issues, and a big thing is that it passes your blood-brain barrier with no what's it called?
Like no filtration, it just comes
Yeah,
straight through.
Yeah, there's no filtration. There's no system that your body has for recognizing that something is a plastic and saying, no, we're not going to let that in our brain. And there's also not a lot of very easy ways to be getting rid of plastics in your body. So all of these negative effects are things that can stay for quite a while.
That being said, like, how like diabetes and metabolic syndrome and like clogged arteries, etc., pretty much have direct correlation with the introduction of margarine and vegetable oils, which are kind of like a form of a plastic if you really think about it. Margarine replaced like all the animal fats because they were saying animal fats caused heart disease, yada yada yada. The funny thing is, like, there's still several 90 and 95-year-old farmers that live around me that only eat animal fats and butter, and they don't use margarine. So there's got to be something to say for that. I mean, because it is an oil.
Yeah, margarine is a very new invention. Named like Crisco, cottonseed oil.
Yeah.
There's actually no medical documentation of a heart attack or anything vaguely related to a heart attack before the invention of like crystallized cottonseed oil or Crisco.
Kind of like autism and vaccines, but we won't go there, right?
Yeah.
Amish, don't take vaccines. Not a single autistic Amish. Coinkydink.
Funny you said the term coinkydink. There's this little video that somebody made, and I've got to say, the most insufferable personality type is the theater kid-esque conspiracy theorist that has that, San Francisco vibe about them. It is at least to me, one of the most insufferable personalities. It's like this kind of guy.
Everything San Francisco is insufferable.
It used to be one of the best cities, but yeah, it's a lot different now.
Hey, as a kid, you learn about like old San Francisco with trolley cars, and it's like California, honestly, is probably the most beautiful state we have. It's got like every type of different forest, desert, mountains, beach, everything. Like at the same day, you can snowboard and surf. And at this point, I would not mind if it just detached and sank in the middle of the Pacific.
All right, well, if I go floating out someday, I guess you'll know where I went.
Just get a raft, you'll be all right. No, I mean, it's like, a 20th of the land in California is what's ruining the other 19/20ths. What part of the state are you in, Gio? North, south, valley?
I'm in Northern California.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little different up there. I would like to make it there to see the trees.
Yeah, the redwoods are beautiful.
Yeah, it's got to be amazing. I've been to Southern California, from LA to San Diego, and I was there for about 10 minutes and I was like, yeah, I've seen enough. From where you're at, is it a pretty good distance to Lake Tahoe?
Yeah, it's kind of up, yeah, like near Truckee. I
Yeah.
think they're getting a bunch. I think they're getting a bunch of snow actually. The next day or two, they're gonna get like a foot or more snow. But so yeah, they're having an extended snow season. Well, I don't know if it's even extended per se. We're still in March, but yeah, they're getting at least a foot of snow. Yeah, Tahoe and Truckee. Yeah, Lake Tahoe is really beautiful. I think it'd be cool to actually do some tests up there, like in terms of some, because Lake Tahoe, it's a big flat lake. So I think there could definitely. I've thought about, and it's pretty clear. Like the conditions may be a little bit unique there, but yeah, it'd be cool to maybe do some tests there. I've thought at some point at Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, there's one of the softwares I work with is from a company out of Lake Tahoe, and I talk to the owner all the time, and he's always sending pictures and stuff, and all he ever talks about is the Burning Man festival. He's like, you got to come to Tahoe, and we'll drive to Burning Man. No, no thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm looking at Lake Tahoe on a map here. As far as north to south goes, it's about 21 miles or so. No. Yeah, 21 miles north and south. And then east and west, one of the wider spots is 10.8, so almost 11. That should be enough to be able to. There should be a curve there, an observable curve at those distances for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there may not be anything too special about it because there's obviously a lot of bodies of water out there. I wonder if there would be anything unique about it. I mean, the waters are really clear. there is like pretty just the conditions, but that's kind of down in the water. But I guess just when I've been there, I've just thought like just because yeah, just the conditions of it and there's a lot of surrounding, like it's all surrounded by mountains, so I don't know if there's anything helpful with that, but the fact there's higher elevation all around it, if there's some test that could be done, like some kind of cross test where you could do it like some kind of between the mountains, measuring either like distances or diverging plumb lines or like maybe combine something. So there could be something about that, the fact that it's like it's all, higher altitude kind of around it. That could be interesting if there something could be combined. But yeah, in terms of the size of it, it's not necessarily like massive. Like you said, yeah, it's about 21, 22 miles at the widest part. But yeah, it could have some potentials.
Yeah, there's a lake. I mean, really, it's just a dammed off river, but there's a lake close to me, and right along the southern border of the lake is a pretty decent sized mountain that's about 3,000 feet higher than the surface of the water. And at the top of that mountain, there's some towers. I used to work for a wireless ISP, and I had to climb those towers. And that's one of the, like when I first started kind of paying attention to any of this, I'd be 90 foot up a tower. And of course, you could imagine, I'm 3,000 feet above the valley. You can imagine how far I could see. Um, but then I started like learning how to recognize mountaintops just, by their shape. And I started realizing that there was like mountains I could see all the way up into like Kentucky that I should not have been able to see. Like for example, one of the mountain ranges I could see was 70 miles away, and between where I was at and that specific mountain range, there was like 8 or 10 ranges of mountains that were within a couple 100 feet of the same height as the one that I was on. So I would have thought that that specific range all the way up in Kentucky would have been hidden behind some of the other ones.
Nice. Yeah. Did you take any like footage of it or?
I mean, I got some just pictures with my phone standing up there. I was holding on for dear life because I'm scared of heights, so I'm lucky that I got those shots. Let me see if I can find some.
How high you say you went up?
Like one of the towers that I went to regularly, I was 90 feet above the ground, and then we're at the apex of a mountain, which is about 4,400 feet above sea level, and then like the average elevation down in the valleys around those mountains is around 900 to 1,000 feet above sea level.
Oh, so you felt that swinging, huh?
Oh yeah, try looking up and like where the clouds are moving, and it makes you feel like the tower's falling.
Yeah, I worked on towers like that.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Oh, I loved it.
I got used to it, but the first few times it was kind of freaky. Here's a picture. This isn't the mountains I was speaking of, Geo, but just to give you an idea of like what I could see. I put it in the text.
Nice. I see it. Yeah, I might have to zoom in, yeah, to see. Oh yeah, here we go.
Was there any satellites pointing up into the sky? 'Cause I
No, these
noticed
are
that when I
all.
was working on them. We always pointed them straight out or pitched them down just a touch.
Yeah, these are just going to other towers or other buildings that are, 20
Yeah.
miles away or whatever.
Yep, same here.
It's all microwave. It's mostly Ubiquity products, if you're familiar. Like here's
It says FU on that tower, the little mini tower.
yeah, the little that's the old fire. What do they call it? Fire tower. So like back in the day, somebody sat up there, and if they saw fire, then they radioed down to the valley.
You ever touch one of the guy wires holding the tower down?
No, but I did make the mistake of touching a wave tube that had 150,000 volts going through it for WIVK radio, and all I could equate it to is like, do you guys remember that football game where it was a metal football field that vibrated with the little plastic figures that vibrated down the field?
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that was
My whole
awesome.
my whole body. My boss, I was asking him, I was like, "How do you climb this tower if it's got 150,000 volts?" He's like, "No, you can touch it." And he touched it. So then I touched it, and I could feel that. And he's like, "Oh, by the way, you're sterile for about a month." So, so you do get some kind of effect from it, but it doesn't shock you.
I zapped one of the guy wires with my ear when I was climbing up it. Holy shit! I got like a little chunk burnt out of my ear.
Like, was it hot?
No, just the you know the cables that hold the tower in
Oh,
position. You know
yeah, but
the
like
red
braided.
or the yeah the orange white ones. All I was doing was changing a light bulb up there. I climb up to the top. I like pull out my fucking cigarette, start smoking. See it burn. I'm looking around. I'm like, bzz. I fucking almost fell off the fucking tower.
It took me a while to learn to trust my harness. Like, I'd get up there and I'd have, both of those hooks, those big D shackles, like hooked to something up above me so that I could lean back into it. But I'd still like wrap my arms around the ladder or the pole and like hold on for dear life. It took me like probably 3 or 4 climbs before I finally could like comfortably lean back into my harness.
Yeah, that's good though. It's good that you had that because I mean, what's the alternative? You forget to strap in and then boom, dead.
Yeah. Yeah, but OSHA wants you to like hook one up as high as you can reach and then climb up till that one's like at your knees and then hook the other one up as high as you can reach and unhook that one, then climb up till that one. It takes forever to do it that way. So I would just free climb all the way up and then hook off when I get to the top.
Yeah, I think everybody I know did that. But I used like the old school stuff too. Like we were so not against, but we broke so many safety regulations. Like I used the belt
Yeah.
harness. I didn't even use like a rail harness.
Yeah, yeah. This old man that used to go with me sometimes, he was like 70 years old. He would just use a belt.
Yeah, I mean they're so much more comfortable. Less weight on you, less shit snagging.
He was a ham radio operator, and he had like 100-foot tower in his backyard. One of those ones that was just like 3 poles making a triangle, and it's only like a foot between each pole.
Mhm.
And he would climb that thing all the way to the top, and it had a couple guy wires on it, but still, as flimsy as that thing looked, I would not have climbed that thing. Of course, he was a lot smaller than me. He was probably 150 pounds, and I'm like 220. So
Oh yeah, it's a big difference.
yeah,
You're bulky. You're too bulky for that shit.
I know I was not cut out for that job. But like we had a tower climber that just worked as needed, and like 2 of our sector antennas went down, and he moved, and like we had nobody to call, and we had like 80 customers with no internet. So finally, I was like, just give me the harness, I'll go do it. And then so I just started doing it.
You ever get to go on one of the towers, like the crow's nest, bird's nest, whatever you want to call it? It's got like a little platform you could walk around. After I think it's like 350. Well,
Yeah,
for my area, it's like 350 feet, and then they have the platform.
we didn't have one that tall. We had one that was like 75 feet, but it was like 40 by 40 at the top.
Holy shit, that's massive. I used to love going up on those. You just hang out on them.
Yeah, matter of fact, the picture I posted, let me go back and look. Both the first picture I posted, you can see I'm standing on the platform at the bottom of the screen. And it just had like handrails only at the corners. So we would like attach a pole, like maybe like a 6-foot pole to that handrail and then put our dish on that. The one that you see on the far left behind the fire tower, it's a government. It does Tennessee Highway Patrol and it linked to like some of the counties, like sheriff's departments up to Knoxville. And then the one in the center of the screen, it was just one that's for lease. You can see there's several different brands of dishes on that one. But you're looking at, if you look to the far right in the picture, that tallest mountain over there, that's Mount LeConte. That's like near Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And straight out in front of you, behind that middle tower, where you can kind of see the concrete, the buildings, that's the parkway going down through Pigeon Forge. There's like Dollywood there, and it's a tourist trap. Don't ever go there.
It's loads of fun.
For who?
I like the fast go-karts.
I go for the rod runs, but other than that, I lived in Florida as a kid. I don't want to go anywhere near anything that reminds me of Florida.
Yeah, my vacations as a child and young adult were Daytona Beach.
Yep, that's where I'm from.
It was all good, man, until they stopped the drinking on the beach. And some of my best days of my youth were on Daytona Beach.
Yeah, that place. I got two older sisters that are a lot older than me, and when we moved to Tennessee, I was only like 13. They were in their early 20s, and I've heard some crazy stories about parties on the beach till the sun comes up.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, we would get there and I would hit the beach down to I think it was Days Inn is where, in front of Days Inn is where it was always at. And I remember a guy named Doc. He was an older guy, but he had the van and the doors swung open and like a couple of 5-gallon igloo coolers full of monkey juice. That's what they called it. But it was like pineapple juice and orange juice and everything mixed up with PGA. And all the pot you could smoke and all the monkey juice you could drink for about a week.
So if you go to the beach and you walk south, you come to an inlet on the other side of that inlet. Yeah, Ponce Inlet. The other side is New Smyrna.
Yep.
That's the town I grew up in, New Smyrna.
Yeah. I hung out as I got older and met a guy at the Sea Love Marina.
Yep.
His dad owned it, and he had a boat, the Sea Lover, and that's where I cut my teeth on deep sea fishing, and I went every year for about 10 years.
Oh yeah, that's a blast.
Good surfing, New Smyrna.
Yeah, New Smyrna's got some of the best waves, but it's also the shark attack capital of the world.
Back in those days, I spent hours in the ocean, but I don't remember seeing any sharks on the beach.
They're all those little spinner sharks and sand sharks. They're like 3 or 4 foot long. I mean, it's not like Jaws.
There's a lot of sharks there in New Smyrna, but that's the thing. You're getting little bites, right? And they'll still record. They'll record those. So
yeah, it's like getting bit by a dog, basically.
Yeah. You're gonna bleed, but you're not bleeding out. You're not dying.
Nah.
But there's a ton of sharks right there in New Smyrna for sure, because you got fresh water mixing with salt water and all that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, all those fish out of the brackish water are being pumped in and out at the inlet, so they just sit right there and feed.
Yep. I'm on the West Coast, man. West Coast Florida's fine. It's fantastic. East Coast, yeah.
The only thing I don't like about West Coast is like when you walk out in the water, because there's not a lot of waves washing out the urchins. You get like knee deep and there's like starfish everywhere, and it starts freaking me out. I'm like, what am I stepping on?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, we don't get the waves over here, but like, yeah.
It looks a
I'd
lot
rather
better
deal with,
there.
yeah, sand's better, the beaches are better, warmer water.
Yeah,
I don't know.
a couple of years ago, I went to Naples, and then I drove all the way up to like Siesta Key, and then I drove all the way down. They call it the Tamiami Highway, Alligator Alley. No, not Alligator Alley. That's the toll road that goes across, but Tamiami Highway. down to Everglades City. And me
Yeah.
being me, I'm like, hey, Google Maps shows this other road that cuts up back to Alligator Alley. So it ended up being like a shale road going through like a national preserve for like 60 miles. I saw a panther, a black bear, big Baldy's python.
Yeah, there's tons of wildlife for sure.
And like where I live in Tennessee now, I live right on the river, and I spend a lot of time in the river. I mean, I've lived here for this November will be 30 years, and I can tell you every bit of the river, like up and down the river, 10 miles either way. But still to this day, if I'm like floating down through there next, I hold onto the boat or something, and my leg rubs against a rock or something, I'm still freaking out just because as a kid, you know, you just did not go in fresh water in Florida.
You
All we
can't.
have here is like
Just got to be
carp.
cautious. Got to be cautious. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the east coast of Florida. It's just kind of like, I don't know.
It's burnt out.
It's dirty and derelict, in my opinion.
It's a bunch of retired New Jersey and Connecticut people.
Last time I went, that's exactly my impression. It was dirty and full of old people.
And they're rude. Like where I live in Tennessee now, everybody's extremely nice. You know, like if you get a flat tire, somebody will stop every 2 minutes. Hey, you need some help? Hey, you need a phone? Here, I got some tools. You know, whatever. In Florida, if you get a flat tire, they will blow their horn, give you the finger, and tell you to get out of the effing road. And I just, I don't care for that anymore. When I moved here from there, I used to think all the time, like, do these people have clocks? Like, do they have any sense of urgency at all? But now I am one of those people. What state are you in, Left Lane? I can hear you from the south.
Yeah, I'm just down the road probably from you. West Tennessee is where I'm from.
Yeah, I'm up near the Tri-Cities.
I'll be rolling right by you tomorrow afternoon up 81.
Yep, I live right at the beginning of it. The 1, 2, 3, 4th exit. I'm sure you've seen the sign for Bull's Gap.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to there. You going up 81 up through Virginia?
Yeah, I go to Winston and I come down 77 out of Virginia.
Okay. Yeah, if you go straight up 81, just along, you know, basically you're running parallel with the West Virginia line. There is a bunch of nothing from like Abingdon. You got Abingdon, then you got Wytheville, which is a nothing town. But like past Wytheville, what's the next thing you come to? Like Staunton, and it's like 150 miles.
Yes, wilderness up there. It's a beautiful country though.
I just don't understand. Like I used to have to go up into Southwest Virginia for work all the time, and there's all this. There's like a 4-lane state highway for miles and miles, and on each side of the road, it is just untouched woods. Like it's not been cleared for cattle or anything. It's just raw woods. Like who the heck owns all that, and what are they ever going to do with it? All the coal mining is dwindled down to like 3 companies.
Hey, Left Lane, random question, but if there's kind of just in between topics a little bit, but do you think that like when you die, you still live after you die? Like that there's some life after death?
No, I used to, and I mean, and I can't say 100% either way, but I've got strong doubts about it.
Okay. Well, I guess the question was going to be if you think you do survive after death, or in some way, or your consciousness continues in some way, as it were. Just, I mean, I'm saying that very vaguely because I don't mean survive like that you're still in a human body living, but that your soul, all of that. I guess I was thinking like, if you thought that that was the case, I guess the question, and anyone else could answer it too, but in terms of like the truth about what the earth is, do you think that's revealed to you in that afterlife? That's the question. And how soon? Like, how soon is that
I don't
revealed?
know.
Like right away, or at
I
some
don't
point?
think it. Yeah, I don't think it'll mean anything in the event that an afterlife is the case. What's here and now won't mean a thing.
I think like that when your soul, I believe we do have a soul, and I believe there is something after this body dies. But it's like, in my opinion, whenever your soul leaves here and goes there, wherever those two places are, it's almost like a what's the word I'm looking for? Just like a unified consciousness. Like I believe like all the answers to all those dead end questions that we have that nobody really knows, I think are all kind of given to you, or you're just enlightened and have that knowledge once you go there. Just a theory.
See, I I was a member of a church and everything right up through my college years, and different things were going on. I never was really comfortable with church, but we studied the Bible. I graduated from a Christian college, and we studied the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, and all it did was give me more questions. And then there was all the hypocrisy that I saw, that how Christians actually treat you inside the church, even, it's like, it just became to me just a load of crap, and
Oh yeah.
and working in medicine. I mean, I was in physical contact with people when they died, and it's like, and then when they die, they're gone. It's like I never got any idea or inclination or impression that there was anything left. It was just empty feeling. When people died with me.
Yeah, Left Lane, I was with someone when they passed away. It was pretty wild. The morning it was overcast, gray clouds, and when he passed away, it's like the light from the sky entered the room through the window, and then the sun appeared. It was blue skies. It was pretty wild. He accepted Jesus.
The 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 thing you were saying about church and the hypocrisy, I agree. Like I call that like modern Christianity or like generic Christianity, because it's like they're just going through the motions because it allows them to put that they're Christian on their Facebook profile, but nobody's really like feeling it. And I had a lot of questions too. Like, I was raised in church since I was a baby, and then when I went off to college, like many other people around that age, I was a little bit more liberal and became like agnostic, I guess. And then I learned about like the books that were. I just started asking questions like, who the hell's King James, and why do we have a Bible named after him, and like, why are there all these different versions? And then when I found out there were books removed, like originally there was 80 books instead of 66. I started looking up all that stuff, and there are a lot of answers to those questions in those books, but it's like they were purposely removed so that they could use religion as a form of control before there was like a well-established government.
Yeah, man, that was part of it primarily when we studied what they call the canonizing of the Bible. And I'm like, hell, this is just a bunch of dudes picking out books and making the decision of what the Bible is. It's like, what the hell, And I've just come to the conclusion that the Bible was written by some leaders in an effort to control the masses by saying you act this way and you'll get everlasting life, but if you're bad, you'll burn in hell. So it's like scary, it's a fear tactic, and that was the purpose of the Bible.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you partially. Like, I believe when the Bible was written, like specifically the Old Testament, which would have been, a couple thousand years before uh, Jesus walked the earth. But I think that when they were written then, it was like actually from the heart, and it was given to them by God. But then I think around like the 3rd or 4th century, specifically people like Constantine took the Bible and saw that they could use it as a form of control. So I think that turns people away from the Bible, like yourself, because you see that part of it. But like chronologically, that happened after, when I think truly people were writing down what God was telling them to write down. But
Well, Techno, I'm not sure if you mentioned Constantine. Are you familiar with Constantine and what happened when he became or decided to choose Christianity?
like I know he merged like all the pagan holidays with the feast and changed calendars and turned
Okay.
people against him.
Okay. He did accept Jesus. Like, I'm not sure if you know this, but when he had to battle to become Roman emperor, and when he did become emperor, he went to Jerusalem and he pretty much tore down Aelia Capitolina. It was the new capital, and if you read about the event, you'll talk about how him and the excavators, they tore down the statue of Jupiter and the statue of Venus, and below them was the tomb of Jesus. And they were talking about how the previous people perverted the holy sites to kind of like cover up essentially the divinity of Jesus. So I think there's a lot more to it that maybe you're not aware of. I'll post a video. The archaeologist who partook or actually shares this information calls it one of the greatest archaeologic uh, finds in of all time. And he talks about the people who was commissioned by Constantine to tear down Aelia Capitolina, because essentially what happened was there was a lot of people venerating the tomb of Jesus. So the current Rome, the current man in control, they were like, I don't like how these people are not listening to me. I want them to listen to me. I'm going to be the man in control. So what they did was they essentially buried the tomb of Jesus and put a statue of Jupiter and Venus above. It's really interesting history.
Yeah, send that to me, please.
Okay.
But why would the tomb of Jesus be in Istanbul or Constantinople?
No, it wasn't. It was in Jerusalem, outside of the city. But what happened was the Roman ruler, he decided to build a new capital on top of the tomb of Jesus, essentially to cover it up, because too many people were considering it a venerated spot, a holy site where people, where they believe that life was conquered. I mean, sorry, death was conquered. Because a
But
lot of people say,
Constantine wasn't in Jerusalem.
oh yeah, I know, but they battled for Rome. But I'll post the evidence for you guys, and you can consider what they say, the archaeologists. Because you do remember Rome took over control of Jerusalem in the time of Jesus. Remember, they put a puppet king, Herod.
Hmm. Yeah, the Romans are the one that put him on the cross.
Well, I guess I was confused. We were talking about Constantine in Constantinople, and there was a Reformation where it went Christian, and they did all that. But that's over where Istanbul is now.
I'm still hung up on this thing about the gopher wood with Noah's Ark, like it only being found in Florida and Georgia.
What are you going to Atlantis?
Do what?
I mean, doesn't that tie into the whole Atlantis thing?
No, the other thing I think is like,
Florida.
what if you can look at like the east coast of South America and the west coast of Africa and see that ultimately they were much closer at one time. So potentially
No, you
Florida,
can't see that.
not at all.
Do you think it's possible that the Fertile Crescent was the Gulf area?
Potentially. And then you know how they described the Garden of Eden with the 4 rivers running out of it, and then like what was on each part or quarter of the land there.
Yeah, that part's interesting. You could tie that to Florida for sure.
Yeah, there's some guy who has like lined it up with like a national park in Florida, and it's like there's all these different plants and animals. That's the only place that they live in the world in this one little part of Florida. Let's see if I can find it. I'm not saying this is true. It's just something to read.
Yeah, I've heard that theory as well. And I also tagged you regarding how they found the lost river of Eden. Supposedly, they found the riverbed. So they do believe they have the location of Eden. Same archaeologist. He has the most popular book on Amazon on archaeology. His channel blew up. I remember when I found him, it was like only 50,000 subs, but he's almost at 1,000,000 subs now.
On this Expedition Bible here.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's like kind of like Indiana Jones, but for the Bible.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm saving this to my watch later playlist here.
Yeah, I definitely think you'll like the tomb story.
Yeah, what ends up happening is I try to lay down to go to sleep, and I turn this on, and then I get so interested I'll be up till like 3 in the morning watching
Right?
like every video.
Definitely.
Pure Rigor. Check out that one I posted, Legend of the Garden of Eden in Bristol, Florida. Scroll down to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph or 6th paragraph. Apalachicola.
Yeah, Apalachicola is up in the Panhandle. I got married on St. George Island, which is the Breaker Island for Apalachicola Bay.
And you know how all the Spaniard conquistadors, they were all in Florida, and like what's his name there thought he found the youth over in DeLand.
Ponce de Leon.
Ponce de Leon. Like, why? You know, back in those days, people were like hardcore into their beliefs and like fought for it and everything else. So I think it's funny that like all these Spaniards that were like hardcore Catholics were all looking for those kinds of things like in Florida.
Yeah, I would be careful with anything information related to the Catholics. I was born and raised Catholic. The whole thing about the Catholicism is they're tied to the Jesuits, and the Jesuits and the Catholics together are the same people that literally hid the Bible. So essentially, they're going around today trying to undermine the Bible.
Well, yeah, I mean they don't pray. They pray to all the saints, which the first commandment tells you basically not to do that. And then they use all these like idolized things like the rosary beads and
There's an awful lot of gold and pompous ceremony.
Yeah, and the Pope just looks like Satan himself.
Their cathedrals are filled with graven images. Yeah, they call nobody father except your Father in heaven. They call themselves fathers. Confession is to a human being, not through Jesus or directly to God Himself. They want to be the intermediary. Yeah, they're basically anti-Christ, but everyone wants to associate them with what Christianity is, which is why most people hate or despise the Bible, and is probably the reason we have such a high rate of people claiming to be atheists these days. Is because they make the association of the Bible with the Catholic Church.
Well stated. And because of all the priests that had wide scale abuse, all those victims probably now no longer want to even touch the Bible.
Especially up north, like New England states, they're like all Catholic, and they're all like I got a bunch of family lives up in New York, and they completely like I'm not saying I'm perfect. I curse and I do things I'm not supposed to, but like every other word out of their mouth is just ridiculous, and everything they do is directly against what we're supposed to do, and they don't see a problem with it.
That's true. In
I
fact,
don't.
the majority of Catholics that I meet don't even know the Ten Commandments or the parables of Jesus. I was one of them. I thought I was Christian until someone brought me to the Ten Commandments, and I realized, wow, I'm not even close. And in fact, the Catholics did change the Ten Commandments.
Really?
Yeah, I'll post it. One moment.
It's like my wife's family's all Catholic, and it's like the ones that go to church on a regular basis are involved in like groups within church, whatever. Like literally, they'll send me like Buddhist things to listen to, like all this stuff. They spend more time studying things other than the Bible. Like none of them actually understand no scripture at all whatsoever. Couldn't cite any of it. No clue.
But they
But
all
they
know
spend
exactly
so
what to
much
say
time.
whenever the preacher says a certain word.
Yep, exactly. They know how to go through the motions and do the rituals.
A buddy of mine growing up, he was Lutheran, and I went with him a couple times, and they were kind of like Catholics in a way with some of the things they did.
Napalm, do you like? I mean, only obviously answer if you want to, because it could be personal or whatever. But do you engage in like going to churches or like church, kind of that world, or not as much? Like the actual church, like churches physically. Do you like engage with that
Me?
part? Me? Yeah, just out of curiosity.
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
But you
I
do
just
have like but you do have a connection to the Bible though, like, but just not through the church kind of systems.
yeah, just personal one, right? Like I went to a Marianist high school. I went to a Baptist university. I've been around the church a lot. I was never forced to go to church by my parents ever. I was baptized Episcopalian when I was a very young child, right? Like a baby. My family never went to church, but I've been around the church a lot. And I've seen the hypocrisy. And I actually, for the longest time, would have considered myself atheist, but had experiences in my life that drove me back to scripture. But I never actually got back into any type of formalized church because I never found one that I felt comfortable with. Yeah, and I feel like at least to me, it seems it's just a more personal thing between myself and the creator. And it would be nice to maybe experience that with others, but I've just never found something that felt right in a group of individuals, if that makes sense.
Because it's so rare for people to actually have a heart in seeking out the truth. Where, like I said earlier, just so many people just go through the motions. They're just hollow, and there's nothing there. They just think that if they do these certain things, that's their ticket, you know. But really, that's all it is your personal relationship and you walking a path that you feel is the path that he wants for you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and really, we
There's
are the
nothing in the
church.
Bible that says anything about needing to go to some formalized type meeting on a weekly basis.
Quite the opposite. It actually says if you know that there isn't a good church around you, then it's fine if you go into a closet and pray there by yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are the church, the people. So you going into a closet and doing that by yourself, you are your whole church.
Yeah. I've just the whole church thing has just rubbed me as being more concerned with getting my contact information so that I can provide tithes and contribute to the church itself, as opposed to like actually shepherding me, right? So,
Right.
but that's just been my experience.
It is
Yeah,
harder
try
and harder to find a good church, like around you. No matter where you live, it's harder and harder to find good ones.
Just
try
because they're
try it here. There's like a Baptist or a Methodist church every 2,000 feet, and they're just all hollow. I don't know what other word to use. There's just nothing there. Although you can go over here towards the side of the mountain, and there's some Pentecostals that do snake handling if you're into that thing.
I mean, there's one church a block away from me, and it's a female pastor, a female lesbian pastor.
They're the new Crossroads Church, right? They got cool neon signs and they sing contemporary music. Makes them good.
See, that's the thing. It's been such a shift. Like it's literally like going into depravity, and I'm just not on board with any of that. Like I see some of my direct family members that are involved in those kinds of progressive churches now, and it's like they're getting zero guidance, and they're being instructed to like read things like Jesus Calling and stuff like that, where you've got people that are claiming to channel Jesus and then write down scripture and all this kind of weird stuff. And it's like I don't know. I just feel like it's so corrupted.